Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 761-780. Chapter 0761-Shuddering Truth. Boom. A dull gunshot came from a distance, and a bullet flew over at supersonic speed. Boom. I saw the bullet fly over a distance of several hundred meters, and when it approached the Tobin mansion, a defensive formation was activated. The light red halo was like a hood, wrapping the entire mansion. However, this protection, in front of the bullet, was broken in just an instant. It's all fast, less than a second before and after. Tosaka Tokiomi still maintained that expression, and the bullet had already approached the window. Gee. At a critical moment, he subconsciously called Gilgamesh. However, Gilgamesh, the phantom body, was not interested in saving him, and still sat calmly on the sofa, holding a goblet and drinking lightly from the glass. The picture seems to freeze here. The surface of the luxurious floor-to-ceiling window was cracked and spread, and a bullet broke through the glass and was shooting towards Tosaka Tokiomi's Shang chamber in a spiral posture. Why is it the Shang chamber, not the head? This is because this sniper gun is extremely powerful, and if it hits the Shang's mouth, it will definitely die. In order to make sure that Tokiomi Tosaka was hit, the shooter was decisive. I can't die. I can't die. At this moment, Tokiomi's brain calmed down. The moment he heard the gunshot, his body's center of gravity had begun to adjust, and when the external defense circle was activated, he had already determined the power of the gun. At this moment, his survival Yu-Wang broke out, covering the Shang's chest with all his magic power, and at the same time his body shifted to one side in an attempt to dodge. However, as a magician, he may have good cultivation and knowledge, but as a human being, it is impossible to avoid the bullets of sniper rifles. Puff! I saw a flash of blood, and Tosaka Tokiomi's right arm and shoulder was hit by a single blow, the bones were minced, and the entire right arm was bloody. At the same time, he was driven by the momentum and flew upside down, hitting the desk directly. At the same time, 800 or 900 meters away, at the top of a building. Emiya Kuritsugu saw this scene through the scope of his sniper rifle. After a little hesitation, he did not choose to fire the second shot. The opponent was already prepared, and it would not be so easy. Thinking of this, he immediately put away his weapon and said to the walkie-talkie hanging on his ear, "Withdraw. Go quickly." After speaking, he moved quickly, took a few steps to run, and then jumped from the building. Nearby, on a clock tower, there was also a woman with a sniper rifle who chose to flee quickly. Ah! Tosaka Tokiomi screamed. His right arm was almost broken, and there was probably only a little flesh and skin still stuck together. On the other side, both Kotomine Kirei and Gilgamesh watched this scene very calmly. Tosaka Tokiomi was very tough, and after a short exclamation of pain, he forcibly endured it. 1 foot. He was dissatisfied and looked at the other two angrily. No one rescued him, the two of them were like watching a play, and they didn't even bother to move. Chase. Kotomine Kirei's expression was indifferent, and he instructed the void. After hearing his words, a shadow disappeared. Gilgamesh, I thought you would save me. He looked at the phantom. Does this king think you will save me? Ghost Body sarcastically said, Tokiomi, it's a blessing not to die. The power of the bullet was weakened by the protective formation. He thought he could enjoy the sight of the corpse torn apart, but unfortunately magicians are not so easy to kill. As a magician killer, Emiya Kuritsugu should have used the original bullet for that shot just now. In the same way, Kotomine Kirei sensed a trace of disobedience. Even if Gilgamesh doesn't like Tosaka Tokiomi again, at that time, he should save him. After all, heroic spirits need to rely on the master's magic power to maximize their own strength, and, when the master dies, heroic spirits are almost eliminated. I want healing. Tosaka Tokiomi gritted his teeth and stood up tremblingly. Kirei, get ready. Yes, master. Kendo Field, dormitory. The portal flashed, and Chin Yang walked out with a little girl. That's it, you'll live here for a while. Chin-young ordered. Hearing this, Maidou Sakura swept around and nodded silently. Seeing that she hesitated to speak, Chin-young said, "Don't be so restrained, Sakura, tell me what you want to say." "What should I call you?" Tasaka Sakura whispered. "You can call me Ains-sama." "Ains-sama, is this the kendo? Why isn't it popular?" Tasaka Sakura asked after calming down a bit. "Is it popular?" Chin-young was stunned for a while, and he really felt that he was not popular. It turned out that all the disciples had run away, and there was only one old man left, and there were only a few people in the entire kendo field. That's right, it's time to add some popularity. This is easy to do, just use phantom manifestation to manifest a group of fake people. Back in the pirate world, I used this trick to create the 10 masters to deceive the world. However, in the final analysis, it is still fake, and there is a chance to get some real people. For example, the artificial man, the technology of the Einsborn family, he is quite curious, and has a chance to take a look. Just as he was thinking, a figure walked in. It was Arusha, but at this moment, Arusha's face was a little pale, and she was obviously injured. After entering the door, Arusha saw Chin-young, to be precise, Anzurgung, and was immediately taken aback. "Who are you _____? I am one of the dreams, Anzurgung who just arrived, the king of the undead." Chin-young said casually, "Lord Chin Emperor is no longer here for the time being." "You are a member of Dream, why haven't I seen you?" Arusha said inexplicably. "Funny, how many fantasy members have you met?" Chin-young shook his head and said, "Dream forces are all over the world, and there are many members you haven't seen before. It's really disappointing that you don't even have the eyesight to follow Lord Chin Emperor." Hearing this, Arusha rolled her eyes and smiled, but the next moment, she coughed again and again. "Is this little girl also a member of Dream?" "No, indigenous. I am under the order of Lord Chin D to rescue her." "Ordered. Does Emperor Chin like young girls?" Arusha opened her mouth full of thoughts. No, what kind of existence does Lord Chin Emperor have? How can I have such disrespectful thoughts? Are you injured? Chin-young surveyed. Know the sequelae of the transition of magic power consumption, just take a rest. Arusha shook his head, that old man named Jewel Wang is surprisingly powerful. Lord Chin D's judgment is indeed correct, and I am not his opponent. On the other side, on a road in the suburbs, Zelrich got back into the car and said to the driver, "Let's go." "Lord Shijiwang, what's the result?" The driver started the car and slowly drove towards Fuyuki City. "It is indeed magic, and it possesses extremely profound time magic." Zelrich smiled and said, "However, behind her, there is a master. This is the truth that makes people tremble. A magician with a master behind it, how terrifying it is." Chapter 0762 _ Grail Container. Time Messenger, Zelrich has already experienced it. He is proficient in extremely advanced time magic. To be honest, he has no good way to take the opponent. Even if the opponent's magic power is consumed too much and the combat power falls from the God of Time, he will still be escaped by the opponent, and it is difficult to trace. Of course, this is not a big problem. What really shocked him was the person behind this new magician. That old man. Arusha mentioned it twice, and to rule out the possibility of being a mystery, Zelrich believes that the person behind it is at least a UO-level existence. The strongest of the planet, or the planet's master, is not impossible. This kind of character will not appear suddenly. Who would it be? Zelrich pondered, and he deduced in his heart that there were several candidates, but they did not conform to common sense, so he ruled them out. The driver glanced at the rear-view mirror. He was sent by the clock tower, and he was regarded as the magician of the clock tower. Lord Wang of Time, what about the Holy Grail War? Because of the existence of the Time Messenger, the Holy Grail War this time has been messed up, and even 2 kings of nights have appeared. Let it go. Just watch quietly, what kind of tricks she, or the people behind her, want to play. Zelrich smiled and said, it's rare to be so interesting, and it's the best choice to sit on the sidelines. Really? The driver was noncommittal, but he did not mean to disobey the other party. Anyway, he's just a driver, no matter what the problem, he doesn't care about him, his duty is to drive and report to the clock tower everything he will see. This whole day, a few things happened that made people dizzy. First, the angel suddenly descended and fought Gilgamesh in a high-altitude battle, and was finally repelled. And because of this, there are 3 masters who are eager to kill Tosaka Tokiomi. The 3 parties are the conquering King Iskander, the spearman Dairamdo, and Emiya Kuritsugu. As a result, Iskander was defeated and seriously injured, Dairamdo was entangled by the assassin Hassan, and the action failed. Emiya Kuritsugu smashed Tosaka Tokiomi's right shoulder with a shot, but failed to kill. At the same time as the farce here, Castergill mistakenly thought that Arturia was Joan of Arc, intercepted on the mountain road, and was finally killed by a mysterious figure. Of course, in the battle between Arusha and Jewel Wang, apart from the parties involved and the forces behind them, the rest of the people did not know, otherwise they would definitely notice something. Throughout the day, several battles broke out in Fuyuki City at the same time. And at this moment, on the outskirts of Fuyuki City, there is a castle. This is not the castle of the Einsborn family, just a big house moved by magic. On the 3rd floor of the house, inside a bedroom. How is she? Emiya Kuritsugu looked at Arturia and couldn't help frowning. In the daytime, without support, I was surprised that something went wrong. Hearing this, Irisfeel explained. The dojo master said that Saber's soul had gone to another place, and she could only wait for her to wake up by herself. Her body is indeed fine, everything is normal, and it has been checked. About the dojo master, tell me in detail. Emiya Kuritsugu said solemnly. The dojo owner is a man. He sounds very young, but he does not rule out the possibility of being very old. I have never seen what he looks like. But he has a very terrifying power. As if thinking of something, Irisfeel showed a hint of concern. Once, Saber and I visited the dojo together, and the dojo master just waved his hand and moved us out of the space and drove us out of the gate. Moreover, this time back, on the way met. She told about Castor again. Finally, he said, that heroic spirit probably misunderstood something. However, it has already been killed by Ains or Gong. You mean a skeleton, or do you have magic in your hands? Emiya Kuritsugu frowned deeply. An angel appeared during the day, and at the same time a mysterious skeleton appeared. That skeleton is related to the dojo master. Who is this dojo master? The name of his searcher, Ains or Gong, as one of the masters, he has a relatively good understanding of some information about heroic spirits. But no matter what he thought, he couldn't find any information from Ains Ergen. It's so strange, it's an angel and a skeleton. Irisfeel, have you asked the family? Not yet. They certainly don't know, though. At this moment, a woman in a black suit walked in. She glanced at Irisfeel, and then said, the information I just got, the head of the Meidu family, Meidu Zuyan disappeared, the adopted daughter's room. Tong Sakura is also gone. Where's Meidu Karya? Emiya Kuritsugu's expression changed slightly. The master of the Meidu family this time, Berserker. I don't know, it's hidden, he should still be there. What the hell happened? Face was heavy, and it took a long time to say. Irisfeel, you stay in the castle, take good care of Saber, I have to visit dojo master. At the same time, the kendo field. Ains Ergong was in a forced transformation period and could not disappear or withdraw, but Qin Yang could still make himself manifest. At this moment, in the dormitory. Emperor Qin, that Ains said. Don't be nervous. Qin Yang drank a cup of tea and spoke slowly. His voice seemed to have magic power, soothing the other party's uneasy emotions. Sakura, you have a very high magic aptitude and possess a rare, imaginary number, attribute. That old man made Uzion use the engraved worm on you, which is a complete waste. Chinyang, Vivi Isho, said, don't worry, I will help you recover from your wounds. From now on, you can learn magic from Ains. Magic. Medu Sakura raised her head timidly. Although she was young, she knew the difference between magic and magic. Magic, Chinyang said with certainty. To be precise, it should be a combination of magic and magic. In short, you will understand later. Speaking of which, Chinyang pointed at the air. Immediately, a holy light shone and enveloped Medu Sakura. The engraved insects left in her body were wiped out and expelled in an instant, and in just a few seconds, she had returned to the state of a normal person. Seeing this, Chinyang said again, Mado Zuion's transformation of you has just begun, so it's easy to clear it up, but you will be weak for a few days and rest well. Ains, take her down. Yes, Lord Qin Emperor. Ainser patted Medu Sakura's head, and took her away. Urusha asked curiously, Lord Qin Emperor, is this little girl useful? She is the Holy Grail vessel. What is a container? Simply put. Chinyang was about to explain. He suddenly stopped. Someone came to visit me, as expected. I'll explain it together later. Go and bring him in. Yes. Chapter 0763_chess piece, chess player. When Emiya Kuritsugu drove to the Kendojo, it was already 11 o'clock at night. With such a sudden visit, he was ready to be kicked out. However, when he got out of the car, the gate of the Kendo was already open, and a woman wearing a hat was standing there. I've been waiting for you for a long time, come with me. Urusha said softly. Wait for me. Emiya Kuritsugu's heart was awe-inspiring and felt a little terrified. The moment you set out to enter Fuyuki City, the adults knew you were coming. Urusha smiled and took a few glances at the man. Don't be so nervous, hand over the gun in your clothes. You can't bring such a dangerous thing to meet the adults. In fact, this kind of thing doesn't matter at all, but it is also necessary to give the other party a little moe. Emiya Kuritsugu's eyes narrowed, but he did not intend to hand it over. The original bomb is his trump card. Handed it over for nothing, and it will be difficult to handle when it is in danger. Idiot natives, if they want to deal with you, why bother? Urusha was not interested in negotiating with him too much, and immediately reached out and grabbed it. Seeing this, Emiya Kuritsugu was shocked, and before he had time to resist, he suddenly found that his own time flow became extremely slow, and facing Urusha's behavior, it was impossible to resist. The pistol from his chest was taken, including all bullets. And after all this was done, the flow of time returned to normal. Come on, come with me. Urusha glanced at him, turned and walked into the house. You the magician back then? Emiya Kuritsugu was shocked, and after a long silence, he stepped forward. He didn't expect that there was a magician here, and he also called the dojo master, adult. The two came to the dormitory one after another and sat down in front of the curtain. Lord Qin Emperor, someone has brought it here. I know, you step back. Chinyang nodded and said, Emiya Kuritsugu, why are you here? Are you the dojo master? Answer my question. Hearing this, Emiya Kuritsugu sat on his knees, his eyes fixed on the curtain. It was obviously just a curtain, but it seemed to separate the two worlds, and he couldn't see the person behind him at all. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath and said, why would the dojo master do that to Saber? What kind of thing? Saber is now in a coma and unable to participate in the Holy Grail War. He is the Holy Grail War important? It's just a farce, not worth mentioning. Chinyang chuckled lightly. Carrot. It may be so for you, but for us, it's very important. Looks like you don't know anything. Oh. Chinyang shook his head and said, you don't know anything about the Holy Grail. After completing the summoning of heroic spirits, you masters are actually useless. He said again, I have accepted Arturia as a disciple. This is to save her, and let her redeem herself from the root. Whether it is Arturia's obsession, encounter, or other destiny, everything, from the root, there is a huge problem. Or to put it another way, the fate of all this started when she pulled out the sword in the stone and became the king. And with that girl's character, it's really not suitable to be a king. No matter what you do, the final outcome probably won't change much. Therefore, the root problem is that Arturia gave up becoming king and gave up drawing the sword in the stone. Now, everything Arturia has experienced in the illusory realm is for her to understand this truth and give up all this by herself. Of course, this is not just to save a little girl. Qin Yang's bigger purpose is to make the King of Knights, the Phantom Arthur, reach a 6-star level. Arthur's 5-star ability is Legend of the King of Knights. But the legend is actually divided into 2 parts. Some of the legends belong to Arturia. If you want to reach the 6-star level, only the 2 can be combined into 1. Let the legend be complete and belong to Arthur alone, then he should be able to break the star restriction and reach 6 stars. If it were someone else, Qin Yang would directly interfere violently, making the existence of the female Night King fundamentally disappear, and it would be more straightforward. But the object is Arturia, he is a bit difficult to do it, so he can only do it in a gentle way. The advantage of this is that it can not only allow Arthur to reach 6 stars, but also allow Arturia to complete self-redemption. To put it in an analogy, it is to let Arthur carry everything that Arturia has on her shoulders. From then on, Arturia was Arturia, a heroic girl, not a king of knights, nor did she draw the sword in the stone. Maybe she will lose some of her power, but Qin Yang has accepted others as a disciple. Of course, there are ways to make up for it from other places, allowing her to gain power far beyond the past. Of course, only he knew all of this, others couldn't see his purpose, not even Urrutia, who was with him every day. At most, Urrutia thought that he liked Arturia more. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately said, "If it's just for this kind of thing, please go back. When it's time to wake up, she will naturally wake up." Emiya Kuritsugu was silent. How could he participate in the Holy Grail War after losing the heroic spirit? Why don't he just give up now and run away? He didn't speak, just sat there in contemplation, and after 10 minutes passed, he suddenly fell to the ground and kowtowed. "Dojo Master, you are not an ordinary person. This Holy Grail War is probably under your control. I don't know what your purpose is, but if you want to obtain the Holy Grail, I don't think other people have a chance." Emiya Kuritsugu seemed to see through something, and said calmly, "Please tell me, what should I do?" He is a dreamer who hopes for world peace, but also a ruthless realist, an uncompromising magician killer, and a very contradictory character. Seeing this, Qin Yang Vivi was startled, and looked at the other party in surprise. "You are very good. From the clues, you can guess everything. When other masters are still blind, you can see the essence of things," Qin Yang praised. And hearing this, Emiya Kuritsugu was even more convinced. In fact, the moment he saw Urrutia, he felt that things were probably more bizarre than he imagined. The mysterious dojo master sitting behind the curtain in front of him is remotely controlling everything. I am afraid that it is the Archangel of the Day and the skeleton mage who killed Castor. Even, the other party accepted Saber as a disciple with a deeper purpose. You know, Saber went to Kendo because of what King Arthur said back then. And the master of King Arthur is the magician of Urrutia. This magician seems to be the subordinate of the master of the dojo. So, does everything need to be said? All under the opponent's control, this person is a chess player sitting outside the chessboard. This thought, in an instant, turned around in Emiya Kuritsugu's mind. Please advise the dojo master, what should how do I do? Chapter 0764 The Lesser Grail and the Greater Grail. What should how do I do? Emiya Kuritsugu spoke intently. Since he thinks that Qin Yang is controlling everything, he might as well give up decisively and ask the other party to let go. Moreover, he came here, but he didn't bring a person, and even the weapons were turned over. If the other party wanted to kill him, it would be very easy. Therefore, at this time, he has to be coward if not cowardly. It's not that he is afraid of death. If he is the only one who dies, that's fine, but he's afraid that more people will be involved. Hearing this, Qin Yang couldn't help raising his eyebrows. I don't hate dealing with smart people. But you think me too evil. I am willing to give up my status as a master. Emiya Kuritsugu said solemnly. I only hope that the dojo master can turn over my family. He was referring to his wife, Irisville, his daughter, and the Einsborn family behind him. Irisville and her daughter Ilyasville are easy to handle, but the Einsborn family, Qin Yang has something they want. Artificial human technology. To be honest, he can study it himself, but it is too wasteful to find ready-made ones. If you say that, it's hard for me to do it, but you have such a good attitude, and it's not good for me to bully the small. The old god Qin Yang said on the ground. Urusha, who was on the side, rolled his eyes. When did Lord Qin ever care about bullying the small with the big one? He was always bullying the small with the big one. When he got on the dream ship of thieves, there were also reasons for being forced by the situation. However, hearing this, Emiya Kuritsugu's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, the dojo master was eyeing something on his side. But before he could speak, Qin Yang continued, however, unnecessary temptation is unnecessary. I know you very well, Emiya Kuritsugu, you can give up everything to achieve the wish in your heart. What wife, daughter, family, on the scale of all mankind, you can completely abandon it. Quote. Having said that, Qin Yang got up and stepped out of the curtain. Emiya Kuritsugu finally saw the true face of the dojo master. It was a very young and handsome face, much younger than him, looking only in his early 20s. But on such a young face, there is a unique temperament that does not belong to this age. The momentum of the upper position. That is the imposing manner of a person who has been sitting in a high position and looking down at all living beings. You kneel here, begging me to let you go. This is just acting, clumsy, trying to get some information you want from me. Qin Yang looked directly at the other party, his eyes seemed to penetrate deep into his heart. Don't come and explore me, that's a weight you can't bear. Boom. Earth shakes. Emiya Kuritsugu only felt that there was a big explosion deep in his consciousness. With a buzzing sound, his mind went blank. An unbearable weight pressed down on his heart, causing the waist he had just raised to bend again, his head tightly pressing against the wooden floor of the dormitory, as if it would crush the floor. Go away, you'll forget everything about tonight. Qin Yang stood in front of Emiya Kuritsugu and said calmly, go for the Holy Grail, to fulfill your long-cherished wish. Go to pray for a miracle to happen, to pursue the miracle you expect. Between words, Qin Yang flicked his fingers. Suddenly, the space around Emiya Kuritsugu distorted, and the figure suddenly disappeared. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in a cold sweat, sitting in the car, holding the steering wheel with both hands, driving the car slowly, on the way back to the castle. What happened? I remember, I was in the kendo, and I met the dojo master. Dojo master. Yes, that's a young man who looks. Emiya Kuritsugu couldn't remember the specific appearance, and he forgot the content of the conversation. He only had a vague memory. There was a voice in my heart that kept repeating. Run, run away, give up everything and run away. Emiya Kuritsugu shuddered. He knew that he must have seen something terrifying, and he was reluctant to recall this kind of horror. It's too late. It's already at this stage, how can it be possible to escape? Kendo Field, dormitory. Lord Qin Emperor, are you just letting him go? Urusha said suspiciously. This guy dares to use his clumsy acting skills to deceive Lord Qin Emperor. It is a crime that deserves death. Look at the struggles of the little animals and add a little fun to the boring night. Qin Yang smiled and said, also, this person is very powerful. If he has the same power as mine, he will be a very troublesome character. Sadly, no. With that kind of power, Emiya Kuritsugu would not pray for miracles, nor would he pursue the Holy Grail. Lord Qin Emperor is bored. Urusha blinked and said with a tender smile, I'm ready to go to bed at any time. Continue the conversation just now. Qin curled his lips and said, the Holy Grail system is divided into the Great Holy Grail and the Small Holy Grail. The Great Holy Grail communicates with the ley lines of Fuyuki City, absorbs magic power, and is responsible for connecting the throne of the heroic spirit, so that the heroic spirit can come to the world as a servant. Is the basis of the Holy Grail War. And the Little Holy Grail. The Little Holy Grail is something concrete, the universal wishing machine. However, after the last Holy Grail War, the Little Holy Grail was destroyed. At this time, the Fourth Holy Grail War, the Einsborn family created a new, Little Holy Grail, which is the artificial human, Irisveal. Of course, it is said that, but in reality, the Little Holy Grail is mainly responsible for recovering defeated heroic spirits, and is a tool for preserving dead servants. Only after absorbing enough heroic spirits will the Little Holy Grail fully activate. This time, Irisveal is the Holy Grail vessel. The end, Qin said. However, I will make one myself, and in a short period of time, I will turn Maidou Sakura into a new container, so as to open the Great Holy Grail and open the way to the root. By opening the source, Qin can reach outside the world, the vortex of the source, which is the source of 99% of the world. If he directly absorbs it, he can control the world. At that point, the world has basically been included in the system of the illusion world, and the conquest of this world has been completed. To be honest, the mysterious power in this world is too rare. No, to be precise, it is the era of 1.4. Instead of looking for mysterious power here, it is better to go to a new world. Qin thought to himself, Huan, what about this idea? No problem. No surprises, it can be done. Fantasy Jean said. However, the will of the world will interfere with you. At that time, there may be a little trouble. This world is relatively special, there are countless parallel worlds, and a single Gaia consciousness can't help you, but if you gather all the parallel worlds I am afraid that it will pose a certain threat to you. Quote. I know, so I prepared Arturia. As long as Arthur reaches 6 stars, the body will be 7 stars. 7-star Phantom God will be even more powerful. Qin understood, then turned and left. Yulusha, the Kindle field has been handed over to you for the time being. If Jewel Wang comes to visit, you will deal with it. Yes, Lord Qin Emperor. Chapter 0765-Phantom Gun. All is ready except for the opportunity. The conquest of this world is only one step away, waiting for Arturia to complete self-redemption and give up the fate of being added by drawing the sword in the stone. I have to meet those two things before that. In the sky above the Kendo field, Qin stood in the void, looking at the entire city under the darkness of night. I can clearly feel that there is a mysterious magic circle that is diligently absorbing the magic power in the spiritual veins of the earth. That is the Great Holy Grail. At this time, the magic power absorbed by the Great Holy Grail is about to be saturated, and the magic power that has been absorbed continuously for 60 years is huge to an extremely terrifying level. It will be over soon. Qin Vivi Isho, slowly closed his eyes. The next moment, the interference force from 6-star Eisen slowly unfolded and spread in all directions. The interference force distorted space and time, reaching the void, searching for something. This process is extremely long, and the moon above the sky of Fuyuki City has dived into the clouds several times, and then popped out several times. 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, after nearly an hour of searching 29, I still could not find it. Strange, isn't it? Or isn't the interference force enough to find? Qin raised his eyebrows and immediately changed his way. This time, it is the power of the illusory god, the source of the power of the illusory god, invisible and intangible, everywhere. Almost in an instant, it spread all over Japan, and then this force sneaked into the void and searched. Compared with the interference force, the power of the phantom god is the embodiment of various laws, and it is more domineering. The realization of illusion, the erasure of illusion, the manipulation of illusion, and the arrival of illusion, these four powers all depend on Qin Yang's power of illusion. However, as strong as the power of the phantom gods, he could not find that place. It's really good, it's hidden so well. But, do you think I can't find it? Qin Yang snorted lightly, and immediately thought about it and unfolded the starry sky map. This is the power of the shadow demon. In the starry sky map, hundreds of millions of light spots are densely packed throughout the entire dark consciousness space. Among these light spots, there are strong lights and weak lights. The strong are like the shining sun, extremely dazzling, and the weak are like dim stars, with no trace to be found. These dots of light represent intelligent beings throughout the planet, including, but not limited to, humans. The brighter the star point, the more powerful the character it represents. This power is reflected in personal strength, power, wealth, status and so on. Gia is hard to find. Isn't Alaya hard to find? It is the unconscious aggregate of all primates, and this star map includes all primates. Qin Yang's consciousness dived into the depths of the starry sky map and finally found an indescribable place. The next moment, his body flashed and disappeared instantly. Ellipsis. Here is the void, nothingness, or the gap between the world, or other names. In this indescribable space, there are two groups of lights. One is white and one is blue. Suddenly, a shadow flashed, and Qin Yang's figure appeared here. Found it. Qin Yang raised his head to look at the two groups of lights, and immediately said with a chuckle, "You guys are hiding really secretly. Are you hiding from me on purpose?" The sound was transmitted. No, it was not the sound, but what Qin Yang wanted to say. Through some special law, it was directly transmitted to the two groups of light and shadow, probably a direct communication of consciousness. However, there was no response. Let me guess, Gia in white on the left and Alaya in blue on the right. Right. Qin Yang didn't care, and talked eloquently, "Don't answer. Refuse to communicate. As a collection of pure wills that transcend the concept of biology, don't you want to talk to humans? Can you call it human?" At this time, the blue light group, that is, Alaya, responded. "I used to be human." Qin Yang said calmly, "It's good to communicate. However, you will greet the guests with this attitude." Hearing that, the two groups of lights were silent for a long time before the light and shadow changed, and finally turned into two little girls. Appearing in the form of a little human girl, "Do you think this will work for me?" In this regard, Gia and Alaya ignored. Both of them stared at Qin Yang, sizing and estimating. "You're not the first creature to reach a place like this." Alaya whispered, her voice also changed to that of a human little girl, "But it's unbelievable to arrive here in a flesh. How did you do it?" "This is very simple. I have even crossed the world, and I am not afraid of the turbulence of time and space. This kind of place can't help me." Qin Yang grinned and looked at Alaya. "In words that you can understand, I can physically enter the world, the vortex of roots." "I can understand." Gia's eyes were indifferent. "You are a visitor from another world. If you want to come to this world, you must have overcome unimaginable difficulties. Maybe you have seen the vortex of the root." "You were wrong." Qin Yang shook his head and said, "Take an egg as an example. The eggshell is the barrier of a world. I came from breaking the barrier, and the yolk is the vortex of the root of this world. I have not been there. The protein between the two is the material world, which is where I was just now. Of course, there are many, many such places, all of which are parallel worlds." Quote. Hearing this, the two lowly suddenly settled down a bit. As long as this guy in front of him has not touched the vortex of the root cause, they still have a way to deal with it. "We're curious about the world you call beyond the eggshell," Gia said softly, "but let's not mention this. What are you doing here? You and I made a non-aggression agreement. An existence like you, do you want to break the contract?" She could say that, and basically regarded Qin Yang as an existence equal to her. "When I came here, the first thing I was looking for was her. Chin-Yong turned his eyes, looked at Alaya again, and said, please contact the contract with Artoria 233. Quote. She is a contract signed with me before her death, a living heroic spirit, and my guardian. Why should she terminate the contract? Alaya expressed his dissatisfaction very humanely. I know what you are doing, you accept her as a disciple, you are guiding her, and making her give up her own destiny. Unlike other heroic spirits, Artoria did not become a heroic spirit after death, but signed a contract and gained power while she was alive. Termination means losing power. Heroic spirits are like chess pieces to you. All heroic spirits seem to be free, but in fact, none of them are free. They come and go when they are called. Chin-Yong was too lazy to talk nonsense, and said bluntly, I have limited patience. This is an order, not a request. Do you think that you, as the prayer of all primates, weigh Arturia and your own responsibilities on the balance? Just a moment. Between the words, he raised his hand and raised his right arm. The phantom gun. I saw this indescribable space, the light and shadow change. A world gun reflecting the gorgeous world suddenly hangs in the sky. This is my world, a world higher than yours. Turn the world into a long spear, which can be pierced with a single blow. No matter how many parallel worlds you have, with one blow, you will all be destroyed. Of course, doing so will hurt both sides. The illusory world will also be weakened by this, and the heroic spirit world will suffer a great destruction. Then choose. Chapter-761-The Endless Cycle of Destiny. Choose. Chin-Yang's tone was unquestionable. It seemed that as long as Alaya refused, the high-hanging gun of the world would fall mercilessly. Previously, Gia had seen the Heaven's Chang Spear, which was a force that could penetrate a planet with a single blow. Even now, that spear was still hanging 100,000 meters away from the planet as a deterrent. But this one in front of him is even more terrifying, and a single blow is afraid that it can penetrate the entire world. That is a world, manifested in the form of a gun. Gia didn't know how to do this, a world so huge that it was unimaginable, turned into a long gun, turned into a weapon. The person in front of him is the master of the world. The same way, what Gia's will can understand, Alaya can also understand. She can fully see the power of this blow. It is a collection of power in a world, the power is unimaginable. Are you serious? Can I take it as a threat? After a long silence, Alaya spoke without emotion. If possible, I don't want to be rough. Chin-Yong said calmly. In essence, I'm relatively mild. That is when there is no interest involved. Once there is something in front of him that prevents him from achieving his goal, he will destroy it mercilessly. If he wasn't sure to kill these two wills, he would want to do it directly. In that way, the world will not be destroyed. At most, it will be a great destruction. Everything will return to chaos, all life will disappear, and return to the wild return to the original chaos. Alaya said, also, your attack is essentially the collision of two huge worlds, and the great destruction that occurs here is the same with yours. It will be true, but my world is more enduring, and as I said, my world is more advanced than yours. The illusion world can devour and integrate other worlds, just like a world tree that spans the heavens, absorbing nutrients from other worlds. The recovery is very fast, and the heroic spirit world suffered such a catastrophe, I am afraid that it will take millions or millions of years to gradually recover. Of course, the Phantom God is only 6 stars now. If it reaches 7 stars, why bother? Hearing this, Alaya fell silent. This blatant threat is direct but effective. No matter what the other party says is true or false, it is certain that their world will suffer a catastrophe. This catastrophe will affect all parallel worlds, and all creatures in parallel worlds will die, plants will wither, the earth will fission, and the ocean will dry up. Of course, correspondingly, Chin-Yang's fantasy world will suffer similar trauma. Crazy. Alaya silently put a label on Chin-Yang. This kind of lose-lose method was even used as a bargaining chip. However, She did not doubt the determination of the other party. As long as she refused, she was sure that Qin Yang would definitely dare to do it. Why? Thinking of this, Alaya asked in a very confused tone, Artoria, what is so special about that human girl that needs someone like you to do this? From her point of view, Emperor Qin is the master of the world, and there will never be any love or affection for Artoria. But it would be incredible to say that it was just a relationship between master and apprentice. She is the prayer of all primates and knows a thing or two about human feelings. But the more so, the more incomprehensible she became. However, on this point, she was wrong. Qin Yang really does not have such emotions as admiration, but more of an appreciation. But this is not the main thing. The key is that the Phantom Arthur wants to break the star restriction and reach 6 stars. At present, the most feasible way is on Artoria. Of course, this cannot be said. Therefore, Qin Yang simply nodded. I am a human being, you are not, you can't understand, so don't try to guess. Answer directly, agree, or refuse. Hearing this, Alaya was silent. Compared to all the primates in the endless parallel world, Arturia, I can really give up. But things will not be so simple. In the endless parallel world, there are endless identical individuals. Don't worry about it, I will help her, unify her own uniqueness. What about next time? Your existence, for us, is a destabilizing factor. What is the purpose of your coming to this world? Of course, it is to incorporate your world into the system of the fantasy world. However, the words can't be said so directly. If they say so, these two wills are afraid that they will fight him desperately. I only come into this world occasionally, so do you believe it? Qin Yang calmly flickered. It's pointless to guess my origin and purpose. As long as I don't interfere with me, I won't violate your bottom line. Or to put it simply, Qin Yang is suddenly going to destroy the world, and these two people can only bite the bullet and think about countermeasures. I see, I can agree to your request in a limited way. Alaya stared at Qin Yang and said, I know where she is now and what she is going through. As long as she voluntarily gives up her own destiny, I will agree to cancel the contract. Correspondingly, you can't interfere in this process, just be R1 a gamble between. This is half true. The fake thing is that she doesn't know where Artoria is exactly. The dungeon, made by the illusion world is beyond the world system. She, the native, wants to peep, unless she descends into that copy with her will, otherwise she cannot. Aware. Of course, she does know what Artoria is doing, because Artoria is her guardian, and there is still a contract between them. No problem. In this regard, Qin Yang nodded and agreed without hesitation. Without external interference, the outcome is certain. And, is it really impossible to interfere? Qin Yang is the master of the illusion world, and that copy is a false world created by the illusion world. It is not a matter of thought to interfere. Moreover, Qin Yang can still do it without knowing it. Because there is still a scabbard in Artoria's body, it is his thing, he moved his hands and feet. Seeing him so straightforward, Alaya felt something was wrong. You present the specific picture. Don't fake it, I can feel it. Yes. Qin Yang, Isho, immediately raised his hand a little. Immediately, the void in front of him was rippling like water waves, presenting a picture. It was a battlefield, there were corpses everywhere, a girl full of heroic spirit, wielding the sword of vowed victory, fought bloody battles. Qin Yang, Alaya, and Dia all cast their gazes and paid attention quietly. Watch it quietly, the end is already doomed. Qin Yang chuckled, transformed into a high chair, and sat upright. That is the endless cycle of destiny. If you want to escape, there are ways, and there is only one. Chapter-761-780 The War King and the Wise King. Arturia opened her eyes again. In the small room, with simple furniture and the windows half closed, the early morning sunlight poured in and shone on her face. She couldn't remember how many times this was the first time, and after every failure, she would return to this day. On this day, she had just passed the New Year's ceremony. On this day, she was called that by the people in the country. It was an era of war, the beginning of war, and the demise of an empire. The empire, which was supposed to be invincible, was waiting to die under the aggression of many pagans. In order to fight the pagans, the empire transferred the troops that were originally guarding an island country. This is the beginning. Arturia's country, losing the protection of the empire, quickly split into small kingdoms. At this time, Arturia was born as the king's successor. Unfortunately, she is a girl, not the person long expected. Not a boy, unable to inherit the throne. Therefore, the young Arturia was fostered by a retainer and grew up as a child of a knight. Growing up in such an environment, Arturia practiced day by day in order to be stronger than anyone else. Verge of death, then there is no need to say more, the girl swears to swing her sword for this. Today is the day of prophecy. With a dazed expression, Arturia slowly got up from the bed. I don't know if it's because of too many reincarnations, and her spirit is getting more and more tired. On the day of the prophecy, in order to elect a king, the king worried about the lords and knights in the country. Whoever draws the sword in the stone will become the king of Britain. Arturia thought to herself. The inscription of going written on the sword in the stone. He also clearly knew that at the end, he used the candidate of knights to pull out the sword in the stone. The most feared magician in the country warned her at that time. If you pull that thing out, in the end you will no longer be human. To be king, you have to cease to be human. King, in order to protect the people, you must be the one who kills the most people. Of course, as if fate had arranged it, the sword in the stone, which no one could shake even a little, was pulled out so easily the moment Arturia went to pull it out. At that moment, Arturia's life growth stopped, and time was permanently frozen at that moment. She is not human anymore. From a human girl, she became a king, and she was empowered by missions. She became a symbol, and a praised spirit. After that, when the new king ascended the throne, Arturia used the army like a god, and was praised as the king who was the incarnation of the dragon, and could not be defeated. 10 years on the battlefield, 12 battles, all ended in physiology. Future, flashed quickly in Arturia's mind like a revolving light. Arturia let out a light breath, sorted out her thoughts, and prepared to go to draw the sword in the stone. She wants to lead everyone out of the predicament again. Suddenly, in Arturia's heart, there was a helpless chuckle. Arturia's delicate body stiffened for a moment, but she didn't seem too panicked. Who? Arthur Pandoragon. It's you. Why are you here? Why am I here? It doesn't matter. It's just a little hard to watch. This is your 12th reincarnation. You have failed 11 times before, are you still persevering? Arthur's voice sounded directly in Arturia's mind. No matter what you do, how well you do, the final outcome is the same. You will come back here again and again, back to the day when this fate began. Hearing this, Arturia's hand tightened indistinctly. If it was fate, I would have surpassed it. I'm not fighting against my end, I'm just changing the future of Britain. I can accept the fall of a country, but not that way. Boring persistence. When you bring Britain to glory, you should know that sooner or later, when you disappear, this glory will also dim. Besides, in the end, you are still betrayed, and this decline will be faster. Quote. Hearing this, Arturia gritted her teeth and said after a while, you are also the king of knights, you should have experienced the same thing. I don't know why you appeared, but I regard you as another male me in a parallel world. Haven't you considered this issue? What's there to consider? Arthur dismissed it. No matter how powerful the founding emperor is, sooner or later, there will be a stupid heir to defeat everything. Qin Shi Huang in ancient China was known as the first emperor through the ages, but he died in only 2 lives. It is normal for people to go to the government and destroy them. Pause, he said again. You said just now that I have experienced what happened to you. This is wrong. I have not experienced any betrayal or subjugation of the country. In my world, ancient Britain is still good. Of what? Arturia was stunned. All the problems, in the final analysis, are the problems of productivity and the system. Why was there a lot of mystery in the age of the gods, but in modern times, even the gods have disappeared completely? This is because of the development of human productivity and the level of science and technology. Rose. Arthur grinned and said, ancient Britain doesn't need an Arturia, but a wise king who understands science, development, and the way to govern the country. Arturia, you are just so good at war. Just use it, don't be too arrogant and arrogant. The girl was struck by lightning. Nothingness, emptiness, gaps in the world. That Arthur is also yours, isn't it? Elias said with a little dissatisfaction. You fouled. I didn't do anything. Arthur and Arturia are two parallel worlds with the same attributes. No, to be precise, Arthur is the orthodox, and Arturia is the mutation. Quote. The old god Qinyang was sitting there. If I want to interfere, I can do it in a more subtle way and let you see it. Although Elia was dissatisfied with this, he didn't say anything. Gia deeply forgot Qindi. Arthur does exist, and as Qinyang said, it is historically correct that King Arthur is male. However, Gia couldn't see which parallel world Arthur, who was hiding in Arturia's heart, came from. The traces of the other party's existence are hard to find. You must know that she is the ruler of the planet, and most things on this planet cannot escape her attention. That Arthur, just like Emperor Qin, appeared suddenly and appeared as a servant of that time messenger. Not only that, but the spells in the hands of the time messenger were all connected with the seat of heroes in a more domineering way. Therefore, Gia can be sure that this Arthur is not as simple as it seems. And the three people who were paying attention on the sidelines were thinking about each other. In the fantasy world, Arturia was stunned. It's not me that I need, but as the King Xian. Chapter 0768_6 Night King 1. It's not me that I need, but as the King Xian. Arturia was stunned, shaken by Arthur's words. She has been resisting so hard, but in the end, is this a sentence? Suddenly, Arturia remembered the scenes of the master of the apprenticeship dojo. What you said is not what others expected, you don't understand people's hearts. This is a very common thing. For Qinyang, this kind of thing is very common. For example, when he took the postgraduate entrance examination, there was a system called adjustment. What the teacher of his school, the teacher in charge of recruiting, wanted was not to adjust the grades of the students, nor the certificates, trophies, or honors that the students had won. To put it simply, what the teacher in charge of the adjustment wants is not how good the students are, but whether they will come. The adjusted often have to show in front of the teacher how good they are, but this is meaningless. Arturia fell into silence, even temporarily forgetting that she should draw the sword in the stone on the day of the prophecy. She was lost and didn't know what to do. Can King Xian lead the country to prosperity without being bullied? She murmured. It can't. Arthur smiled. You are the king of troubled times, not the king of prosperous times. In troubled times, people like you are still needed, but you are far from governing the country. Hearing this, Arturia suddenly felt a little better. Suddenly, she couldn't help asking, you have also drawn the sword in the stone. How did you do it? Why does Britain still exist in your world? This is a complicated issue. I have a proposal, I wonder if you're interested. Arthur asked rhetorically. What proposal? Use your eyes to witness everything for yourself. Between the words, a white light flashed across Arturia's chest, then turned into a scabbard, and the scabbard eventually became Arthur himself. This is just a clone of me, it doesn't have much power. Arthur said, but it's no problem to pull out the sword in the stone. You mean? I will replace you and become the king, and you will become my incarnation, go to war, and calm down the chaotic world. With your military talent and my policy of governing the country, you can transcend destiny and change everything. Both are King Arthur, but the division of labor is clear. Can this really change the outcome? Arturia said blankly. How do you know if you don't try? It failed, but it's another reincarnation. Arthur chuckled lightly. How could it fail? Although the dungeon of the illusion world will evolve by itself, as the master of the illusion world, there is no problem with a little interference. Just like the designer of a game, if even the designer himself can't clear the level, then it's simple, just rewrite the game program directly, that's it, so there is no situation where you can't pass the customs. Hearing this, Artoria was silent for a long time. You have to think about it. What does it mean to give up drawing the sword in the stone? Asia Set woke up. From an ordinary girl to a famous king, the beginning of everything started from pulling out the sword in the stone. Abandoning drawing this sword means that Artoria as the basis for King Arthur's existence no longer exists. Of course, the good thing is that she can live like an ordinary girl. I know, then try it. Arthur, let's join forces to change the fate. It will change, I promise. You foul. Alaya couldn't take it anymore and glared at Qinyang. Here is the void, the nothingness, the gap between the worlds. I followed your agreement and didn't interfere, so what's the point of fouling? Qinyang sat there calmly, without panic at all. I've been under your nose from beginning to end, what have I done? This was already arranged before you came here. Alaya said coldly, you expected me to propose such a rule. You arranged it from the beginning. You think too much of me. Qinyang smiled without saying a word. Predict the future, or something similar, Alaya said bluntly. Who knows? Qinyang was too lazy to answer. Predicting the future can indeed be done to a limited extent, but Alaya will propose such a rule, which he did not know before, and can only say it is a coincidence. Seeing that the two were full of gunpowder, Gia had no choice but to say, everything has not yet been settled, and the final outcome of Arturia may not necessarily change, let's see. Look at it. That's a long time span. But don't worry, here and there, time is never a meaningless thing. Qinyang leisurely conjured up the wine, poured a glass for himself first, and then poured it for the two little lowly. The moment Artoria gave up the sword in the stone, the end of the game was decided. The present world, Fuyuki City. The night has passed and a new day has come. In a hotel room, Jule Unzelrich organizes the information in his hands. The data shows everything that has happened since the Holy Grail War began. Sure enough, there is a huge shadow behind it. Zelrich said with interest, Dream. Attacked a church and killed a priest. About this matter, it seems that the priest violated the rules first. The driver sat aside and explained, now, the church's subordinate agency, the burial agency, seems to have sent people to Fuyuki City to investigate the situation. Who would it be? Zelrich asked curiously. According to the situation on the side of the association, the church sent it seems to be Solomon. Solomon. Zelrich froze. Which one? The burial agency, ranked 5th, ranked 20th in the 27 Dead Apostles, has the alias of Crown, Melian Solomon. Oh, the 5th place in the burial agency. Zelrich chuckled and said, why don't you let the leader come? It's probably useless to be just a demon envoy. Saying that, he closed the documents in his hand, got up and walked towards the door. Let's leave them alone. There is no doubt that there is a shadow behind this Holy Grail War. And all the signs show that the kendo is very strange. I'll check the situation, you don't have to follow. Then, when he opened the door, he paused again and said, if I don't come back, remember to report the truth to the dean. Remember to describe it like this, it is an unknown organization with magicians and an unknown purpose. The members of the organization are suspected to be an angel, an assassin who travels through the shadows, and has a special method of summoning heroic spirits. The leader of the organization is at least a planet master level existence. After speaking, the others have disappeared. Zelrich's words echoed in the room. It's a pity not to take a look at something so interesting. Chapter 0769-6 Night King 2. Zelrich came to the Kendojo alone. It seemed that he was expected to come, and when he approached the gate, there were already 4 people standing in front. One of them, whom he had only met yesterday, was Arusha. And the other 3. A skeleton, a little girl, a king of knights. Should you be Arthur? Zelrich said in surprise. As expected, they are all gathered here. This kendo field is really interesting. Skull. The accurate description should be the undead. You can call me, Ains Ergen, the king of the undead. Ains Ergong said coldly. Although you hide your breath, it is impossible to hide from our eyes and ears. Knight King Arthur smiled and said, Your Excellency Jewel Wang came to visit. What's the important thing? Are you a dream? Zelrich looked at the 3 of them warily, but as for Maidou Sakura, he ignored him. Time messenger, we meet again. I don't want to see you, but the Lord said that you will definitely come to visit. Arusha faced each other and said calmly, Then, what's the matter? You don't have only so many people in your dreams, at least there is one shadow killer. Zelrich passed through a few people and looked at the dojo behind. I don't know why the dojo master didn't come out. He. Just then, a chuckle came. Arusha and the others stepped aside, only to see a man in a long snow-white coat with a folding fan in his hand walking slowly in the dojo. The masculinity is unique, like a fairy in the world, floating out of the dust. Lord Qin Emperor is going out. You may not be able to see him. I am one of the great masters of fantasy, Shui Sheng. If you have anything to do, please tell me directly. In 3 or 2 steps, the student walked to Zelrich and put away the folding fan. And when he heard his words, Zelrich was instantly stunned. The students gave him the feeling that he was even more difficult to deal with than Arusha. The great master. Is this time messenger too? Me. Arusha was startled, then smiled tenderly. I'm not. I'm just a little maid next to Lord Qin Emperor. Maid. Zelrich's face changed slightly. A magician, just the level of a maid. Don't try, since you are in doubt, then I will tell you directly. The student shook his head and said, The great ruler is just a rank within our organization. Below it, there are rulers, cadres, and then ordinary members. Above this, there are world masters, Taoists, etc. Wait, the existence beyond the rank. In the end, it is the deputy leader and the leader. Hearing this, Zelrich was shocked and felt incredible. The snow saint in front of him feels extremely difficult to deal with, at least it should be much more terrifying than the time messenger. But such a role, in this organization, is only in the middle and upper layers. How terrifying are the world masters, Taoists, and leaders above. Zelrich felt that he could go, but if he didn't, he might not be able to go. Q_. So many thanks for the explanation, I just happened to be passing by today, goodbye. Zelrich immediately stepped into the parallel world and prepared to evacuate. However, Shui Sheng took a step forward and grabbed his shoulder in an instant. Since you're here, don't rush to leave. During the conversation, the world outside the 2 changed, and they traveled through the world in unison. Is this a parallel world? Shui Sheng raised his eyebrows in surprise. Apart from him, the Arusha people had disappeared, to be precise, in another world. The magic behind communicating the roots is really interesting. It's like some kind of authority. If the root is compared to a system, then, after communicating the root, the magic obtained by the magician is equivalent to a certain level of authority under this system. Right now, this shuttle to parallel worlds is completed in an instant. You can actually follow. Zelrich's expression was solemn, but he didn't run away again. Just right, I also want to see what the strength of the big master is. He. Student chuckled and said, I'm not interested in playing with you. Saying that, he turned his hands and gathered a picture scroll. Iceberg Snow Lotus figure. The scroll unfolded and was thrown into the sky. Immediately, the space of the parallel world on this side began to collapse under the distortion of the picture scroll, and was absorbed into the picture scroll. What is this? Zelrich waited wide-eyed, feeling a hint of horror. This is a move to seal the world. A whole world and planet are sealed in a scroll of paintings, Your Excellency Jewel Wang. Just play with it. Goodbye. As soon as the voice fell, Shui Sheng turned into light and shadow and disappeared. Zelrich looked shocked, looking at the picture scroll in the air, speechless for a long time. This is definitely Yuo, the existence of the strongest planet on the planet. The so-called Great Master is already terrifying to such an extent, then. A copy of the fantasy world, Ancient Britain. Time flies, and I don't know how many years have passed in the blink of an eye. On the day of the prophecy, a young man named Arthur drew the sword in the stone, took the crown from the king's hand, and became the new king. King of Ancient Britain, King Arthur, King of Knights. When he ascended the throne, he began to innovate the system and develop agriculture. On the one hand, Arturia, in the form of Arthur's substitute, led the army to fight everywhere, saving the disintegrating country from water and fire. This time, it is not a single king of knights, but two people who know all history, rebelling against fate. Therefore, the war ended faster, much sooner than it had been in history. Ancient Britain has developed very well. With Arthur's policies and technologies, a small country has recovered to its peak in a short period of time from the state of being about to be destroyed. Arturia saw everything. She was like Arthur's shadow, watching everything Arthur did. Methodical. We can clearly see the future in a few steps, and use appropriate means to balance the interests of all parties, so that the country as a whole will develop towards a strong and prosperous state. That alone, Arturia couldn't do it. When the world is fighting, everyone is of one mind, but when the world is stable, the various interest groups begin to divide, and infighting naturally breeds. But Arthur controls everything very well, but, in the same way, as a wise king, Arthur is too tired, often late at night, still dealing with government affairs. One night, the study of the palace. Arthur sat behind his desk, flipping through the latest national grain statistics. Suddenly, Arturia walked in. I feel that my time is almost over. Huh, Arthur looked up, puzzled at first, then disappointed. Are you leaving? Arturia nodded, then smiled. Sure enough, I'm not suitable for the king. I'm very relieved that the country will be handed over to you. The two have been together for so long, and it is really a bit reluctant. It's just a fantasy. Even if it's an illusion, I'm satisfied. Arturia said with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Arthur, my obsession has been resolved. At the same time, over the years, I have guessed a lot of things. I think, this is also the purpose of the master. From today, I am no longer the king of knights who drew the sword in the stone, but the master's little disciple. Arthur, I will go first. You are here to lead the country to the end. The voice gradually faded to 2.1, and Arturia's figure also turned into a little golden light and disappeared. To the end. Arthur sat behind the desk, shook his head and said, I also think, it's rare to play the king's game once, but if you unlock the obsession, it means that this phantom dungeon is cleared, and it will dissipate. With the disappearance of Arturia, the entire copy of the illusion world began to collapse. And at this moment, golden light appeared from Arthur's body. Come on, the unity of history, the uniqueness of legends, let me start to climb to the 6th star. Arthur's ability 5 is the legend of the King of Knights. This legend is divided into two parts. One is the male Night King and the other is the female Night King. Now, in the dungeon of the fantasy world, the legend of the female Night King has completely disappeared, and the history is unified. This 5-star ability has truly become complete. I saw Arthur's whole body shining with golden light, and the figure stood in the broken world, and the momentum became stronger and stronger. At the same time, the information about this phantom body is changing in his mind. 5th change, King of Knights, Arthur. Star rating. Chapter-760-reverse causality. I1. Nothingness, emptiness, gaps in the world. Qinyong sat upright and said with a chuckle, Alaya, fulfill your agreement and cancel the contract with Arturia. Alaya looked at the picture ahead, the copy of the fantasy world gradually collapsed, and Arthur truly obtained the legend of the King of Knights. She didn't know how the other party did it, but there was no doubt that Arthur gained unimaginable benefits while Arturia was relieved. Obviously history has not changed, but the legend about the King of Knights seems to be completely different. What kind of ability is this? Elia couldn't figure it out, so he simply asked, why does everything that happens in the dream-like illusion affect reality? As a collection of wills of primates, is there something I don't know? Qinyang chuckled softly and said, this is called interference force, and you can understand it as a small variant of the causal law. Everything happens for a reason. Under the avenue of cause and effect, the interference force can only be regarded as a small branch of it. What Qinyang did is very simple, just let the result change first, so as to affect the cause, that is, reverse the cause and effect. At the beginning, Qinyang brought Arturia into the dungeon and did not fully tell her the truth. Although the phantom dungeon is fake, and everything that happens inside will not affect reality, but that is when the dungeon has not been cleared. After the copy is opened, this result has already appeared. Under the interference force of the real world, the cause of the past will be changed because of this result. This has led to the fact that there has never been a female Night King in history, and Arthur has become the only legend. Have never heard of such power. Elia stared at Qinyang and said, this time you won. With a wave of her hand, she released the contract with Arturia, and then, as if she didn't want to see Qinyang's face, she disappeared without knowing where she went. Qinyang nodded with satisfaction. The main purpose of this world has finally been achieved. Of course he is happy. Under the pleasure, cannot help but say a few more words. The power that you don't know is gone. The power system that you get when you hide in a world is very simple. Even if you have unmatched power, you will suffer from a complex power system in the face of it. For example, in the world of Dragon Ball, any existence can easily blow up the planet, which is incredible. However, such a strong person will also die of heart disease, and the weakness is too obvious. Qinyang has countless ways to let the other party die without the other party knowing. Outside, Gia looked very calm. She was originally a bystander, and Arturia was not her heroic spirit, so it had nothing to do with her. If you want to go outside and have a look someday, you can call me by my name. Qinyang chuckled. I am called Emperor Qin. As long as you call me, no matter where I am, I can sense it and respond to the call. Then, goodbye. Speaking, Qinyang got up and took a step, disappeared without a trace cue. Why Emperor Qin, is it really incredible that the power can travel through all realms and descend at will? I. Gia always felt that this person was very dangerous, and it was no accident that he came to this world. But the existence of the other party, unless the two sides want to break the net, there is no way to deal with it. Fuyuki City, a castle on the outskirts. On the soft bed, Arturia's eyebrows Vivi trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. There was a soft moan from the end of her nose, awakening Irisfeel beside her. You're awake, Saber, Irisfeel said in surprise. Irisfeel, you've been. Arturia was about to speak, and a force was surging in her body. This is. Whoosh. A blue light flashed, turned into a scabbard, and then the scabbard broke away and disappeared in an instant. Arturia was stunned, then reacted, so that's how Arthur can appear in the fantasy world. I should have thought that this is not my scabbard, but his. Saber, Irisfeel said worriedly. I'm fine. I've tried everything in the fantasy world, and I've let go of my obsession. Arturia smiled and got up from the bed. Just as he stood firm, suddenly, a sense of weakness came. Immediately afterwards, a will, not a planet, but all primates descended. The contract with you is cancelled. From today, your time will start to flow again. You no longer a heroic spirit, no longer a guardian. This will comes and goes quickly. When it appeared, everything was still, and Irisfeel had nothing to do. So that's how it is. Arturia felt that something stagnant in her body began to flow again. When she was young, she drew the sword in the stone. From that moment on, her time stagnated, but now, it has resumed again. Likewise, the Sword of Oath of Victory lost the luster of the noble phantasm and returned to the original Sword of the Lake. The scabbard that existed in Irisfield's body, the distant ideal land, disappeared without a trace at this moment. After losing the contract, he is no longer a heroic spirit, and he also loses most of the characteristics of heroic spirits. The contract between her and Emiya Kuritsugu was also in touch. Arturia's face turned white, and Vivi suddenly lost her strength, making her uncomfortable for a while. Saber. Irisfield still didn't notice what happened, just asked worriedly. Don't worry, Irisfield, I am very happy to be with you during this time. Arturia said softly. My responsibilities and mission have disappeared, and now I want to see the master. Kendo Field. Shui Sheng and Zelrich disappeared together and went to another parallel world. At the same time, the King of Knights radiated light. The legend has been unified in the endless history. At this moment, the legend has been added to 967, and his ability has been expanded, and he has obtained divinity. The whole person exudes divine brilliance, and the power is growing rapidly. What's wrong? Urusha looked in surprise. Meidou Sakura hid behind Ainz Gong, but watched intently. Did you succeed? Ainz Gong pulled the little girl and stepped back a distance. Well, it worked, the plan went well. Arthur smiled and said, my star limit has been loosened and I'm about to reach 6 stars. Saying that, he looked up in the direction of the suburbs. I saw a beam of blue light flying from the horizon and submerged in his body. This is the scabbard. With the return of this power, the 5-star restriction, like a broken chain, shattered with a bang. In an instant, Arthur's divinity exploded, and the mysterious strength increased geometrically. At the same time, the powerful existence of the whole world, the entire planet, all sensed it. Impossible. In this era, there are still gods. No, a new mystery has been born. Since Solomon's death, the age of gods has accelerated and retreated. This time, it is the first time that it has grown in reverse, and the mystery is increasing. Who is it? In that direction, Japan. Countless people cast their eyes on Japan. At the center of the storm, the King of Knights finally reached the 6-star level. At the same time, with his success, the 6-star restriction of Qin Yang's body is also loosening, and he is climbing towards 7-star. Chapter 0771-7 Phantom God. The King of Knights reached 6 stars, which was a quick and uncomplicated process. At this moment, his whole body flashed with divine light, and the whole person was like a god in mythology, full of mysterious atmosphere. What happened? Urusha narrowed her eyes and looked at Arthur from a distance. In her opinion, King Arthur at this moment can no longer look directly, as if the life form has undergone an essential change, which is completely different from the previous moment. But she couldn't tell the difference, she just had this feeling. Is this the 6-star heroic spirit? Arthur himself was also a little surprised. It was very different from the 6-star blue dye and the 6-star element master. 6-star Arthur's life form changed from a heroic spirit to a legendary god, and he was born because of legends. It can be said that his current power, form, and way of existence are all because of the legend of King Arthur. As long as the legend does not die, he will not die. This is almost equivalent to a god, and the mysterious intensity is extremely high. The strength has been improved by leaps and bounds, similar to the 6-star elemental master. However, this is not the most important. The most important thing is that there are finally 3 6-star phantom bodies, and the main body has met the conditions for star promotion. In the pirate world, Qin Yang had already reached 6-star level, but after experiencing 3 worlds in between, he raised the 3 phantoms to 6-star level, which shows how difficult it is. However, correspondingly, the current harvest must also be very large. Kendo Field, Dormitory. Qin Yang came back from Alaya and went straight back here. He sat cross-legged behind the curtain, relaxed and quietly felt his own changes. It started. He secretly thought. I clearly felt that some kind of shackles on my body were swept away by a force, and the seventh star of the phantom god was condensing. Illusory God Qin Yang, Ontology. Star Rating. Ability 1. Phantom Manipulation. Ability 2. Delusional Obliteration. Ability 3. Illusion Embodiment. Ability 4. Illusion Comes. Ability 5. Illusory World Creation. Ability 6. Illusory Fusion. The seventh star, which appeared at the same time the King of Knights achieved the sixth star, is now changing from a hollow to a solid one. Qin Yang only felt that his own power was boiling, and he suppressed his own power with all his strength to prevent everything around him from being accidentally destroyed by him. Suddenly, Qin Yang's world changed. He seemed to be detached and stood in the pale. Is less than or equal to. Paleness, there is a river of time in front of him. Standing by the river, Qin Yang can see at a glance that in the long river of time, each timeline is his own. The seventh ability is related to time. Pi. Qin Yang murmured softly, fantasy. He tried to ask. I didn't expect a response, but Fantasy Jean was indeed answering him. At the beginning of the 7 stars of the illusory god, the ability is not fixed, it is up to you, what kind of power you want, not the set program. When you achieve it, you will what kind of power to unlock. Quote. Similar to other phantoms. Any phantom body, the power within the 5-star level, is set. At the moment of obtaining this transformation, the 5 abilities have been determined, and they just need to be unlocked. However, after breaking through 5 stars and reaching 6 stars, some acquired powers will also be incorporated into new abilities, and the original 5 abilities will also be reconstructed according to the focus. At this moment, the Phantom God is similar. But the power of the illusionary god will not be reconstructed, and with the birth of the 7th star, a 7th power will appear. Is it what I want? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows. I just closed my eyes and saw the river of time. The ability of these 7 stars should be related to time. I can only think from this aspect. Qin Yang is no stranger to time-related abilities. Urusha knows time magic. As Urusha's boss, he naturally understands it very well. However, Urutia's ability can only be regarded as a trail, the most common part of time-related power. My first 6 abilities are all at the La level. Then, the 7th one should be the same. Qin Yang pondered, looking at the long river of time. As the long river flows by, Qin Yang sees his past self and his future self. My past self existed on Earth. There were pictures of eating with my parents, playing in the amusement park with my sister, and also going to the aquarium by myself, and finally accidentally crossing into the world of pirates. The past self, what I knew, what I forgot, everything, from birth to death, appeared one by one. In the same way, the future self is also constantly flashing with all kinds of strangeness. It was a modern world, and the future Qin Yang was surrounded by a shadowy figure. It seemed to be more intimate than the average female subordinates, but it did not reach the level of a lover. It seemed to be dating. Who is this woman? Qin Yang muttered in surprise, but when he wanted to see clearly, his future self had gradually disappeared. The past, the future, has not yet happened, everything is fixed, unchangeable, everything has not yet conceived, unpredictable. Only now, only forever. Boom. After a long time, Qin Yang felt drowsy for a while, but he quickly calmed down. When he opened his eyes again, he still saw the long river of time, but this time, it was completely different. He couldn't see himself, whether it was the past or the future, no matter which timeline, his existence had disappeared without a trace. When you reach the 6-star level, the phantom body integrates everything in the endless world. After the 7-star level, the past and the future are also integrated into the only one. Qin Yang murmured softly, the time I am is the real time, the place where I am is the real me, and everything else is illusory. In an instant, Qin Yang jumped out of the river of time, detached himself, and reached the 7-star level. Illusory God Qin Yang, Ontology. Ability 1. Phantom Manipulation. Ability 2. Delusional Obliteration. Ability 3. Illusion Embodiment. Ability 4. Illusion Comes. Ability 5. Illusory World Creation. Ability 6. Illusory Fusion. Ability 7. Illusory God Real Self. The 7th ability, the true self of the Phantom God. Qin Yang is carefully understanding the new ability. I thought it was time-related, but it seems to be more than that. As a 7-star ability, it first has 2 general functions. First, the only true self, the past and future of the illusory God. Everything is elusive, even now, after the next second, when the present becomes the past. Qin Yang can also deliberately leave such traces in time. Erase without leaving a trace. The second is related to the phantom body. As the star of the illusory God's body is getting higher and higher, all the previous transformations are no longer necessary. This ability 7 is related to these phantom bodies that have never appeared or used. Looks like it's finally time to deal with the transformations you don't need anymore. Chapter-762-Phantom Crystal. Compared with the 6 stars, the 7-star illusory God has been greatly improved. This improvement is not pure power, but a more comprehensive power system, and more legal power. The 7th ability, in the final analysis, is related to time, or in other words, it is close to the essence of time. I roughly understand the properties of the ontology. Qin Yang opened his eyes and secretly said in his heart, the power of the phantom gods comes from the phantom realm. The stronger the phantom realm, the stronger the phantom gods, and the power of the phantom gods is linked to the star rating. The more laws and abilities, the more bizarre and complex it will be. Quote. After the 7-star level, he has been able to cross time and space. If time is likened to an endless long river, then everyone sinks in the long river. They are fish in the river. Even if they can occasionally leap out of the river, they will eventually fall down and return to the river. But Qin Yang is different. He, a 7-star, has jumped out of the long river of time and stood on the other side. He is no longer a fish in the river, but a fisherman. The biggest advantage of this realm is that it can directly obliterate the enemy beyond the long river of time. This kind of obliteration is absolutely impossible to resurrect. The past, present, future, and even the traces of the 750 other parties' existence will be erased together. In the endless parallel world, the other party will completely disappear. Compared to the 6-star rating, the 7-star rating has risen to a new level. Qin Yang couldn't help but sigh. The body became more and more terrifying. Now he is afraid that the other 20 or so transformations, including those 6 stars, together, are not his opponents. Different power levels. Fantasy. Thinking of this, Qin Yang said in his heart, I have reached the 7-star level. Do I need 3 more 6-star phantom bodies for the next 8-star level? Not accurate. Fantasy gene seems very weak. Every time Qin Yang raises his interest rate, it is like this, and this time it is even more serious than before. You need 3 7-star phantom bodies, but because of the power of the phantom god, you can break the existing phantom body and form a phantom crystal, which can be used to transform the 5-star phantom body. Upgrading to 6 stars does not require you to find a way to break the star restrictions. It is a general method. You will know how to do it by trying it yourself. After speaking, it has lost its life, disappeared, and fell into a deep sleep again. Hearing this, Qin Yang wanted to ask some more questions, but Fantasy Gene didn't answer. It seems that I have to give it a try. The so-called broken means to completely make a certain phantom disappear. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately took action. He thought about the phantom he already had. 23 bits. 5-star Sea Dragon, 5-star Shadow Demon, 2-star Ibaraki, 3-star Ninetales, 6-star King Arthur, 5-star Lich King, 5-star Uchiha Itachi, 5-star Holy Archangel, 4-star Dread Demon, 6-star Aizen, 2-star Sand Emperor, 5-star Gold Glitter, 3-star Space-Time Fish, 3-star Raiko, 3-star Accelerator, 5-star Uchiha Madara, 2-star Onmyoji, 5-star Snow Saint, 3-star Hu, 5-star Deathwing, 6-star Elemental Lord, 1-star Daozun, 2-star Undead King. There are so many phantoms, some of which can't keep up with the rhythm. The 6-star one can't be thrown away, nor the 5-star one. In that case, there's still Ibaraki, Ninetales, Great Demon King, Sand Emperor, Time and Space Fish, Lei Gong, Accelerator, Onmyoji, Phoenix King, Daozun, King of Immortality. Although the Space-Time Fish is only 3 stars, it is still necessary to find new worlds, so it is excluded. Accelerator's ability is more interesting, rule it out. Ho-Oh's power is resurrection, it's very useful, and it's eliminated. Daozun, needless to say, rule it out. The Undead King, Ains or Gong, I haven't used the phantom body just now, so I'll rule it out first. Qinyang thought about it a little bit, then, there are 6 left in the end. Ibaraki, Ninetales, Fear Great Demon King, Sand Emperor, Lei Gong, Onmyoji. The Great Demon King of Fear is already 4 stars. It's a pity to throw it away. Let it go first. For Juya, this transformation is more interesting, so let's put it aside first. As for the other 4, it doesn't matter. Qinyang pondered for a moment, and finally chose the Onmyoji. Try it with him first. And Bai Qingming's transformation is the first transformation in the world of death. Although the ability is very restrained against the spiritual body, and there is some potential, but seriously, there is no big demand. Broken it. A white light was projected in front of Qinyang's Shang. Bai Guang turned into the great Onmyoji and Bai Qingming. The two looked at each other, and the next moment, Qinyang raised his finger. In an instant, fine cracks began to appear on and Bai Qingming's body, like brittle glass, cracked every inch, and finally shattered with a bang. The broken phantom body turned into pure mysterious power, which gradually converged and turned into a jade with mysterious brilliance. The jade was only the size of a ring, and it fell into Qinyang's palm. This is the Phantom Crystal. Qinyang murmured in surprise. Very good. It is fundamentally different from the general mysterious power, it seems to be more advanced. But the energy intensity is not too big. Careful estimation, it takes about 6 phantom crystals to push a 5-star phantom body to 6-star. Very good. Qinyang nodded with satisfaction. Although the demand is relatively large, the source is relatively simple. I can quickly make some phantoms reach 6 stars. It is not easy to want the crystal of illusion. You can get it by constantly opening new transformations, and then breaking the unnecessary ones. In the same way, Qinyang understood at the moment when and Bai Qingming's phantom body was broken. He has completely lost this phantom body and will not appear in the future, which is probably equivalent to removing from the card pool. This is good, he doesn't need this anyway. 7-star is really a new world, there is no need in this world, let's end it quickly. After putting away the phantom crystal, Qinyang slowly got up and walked out of the dormitory. When they came to the vestibule of the dojo, Urusha and the others were still shocked by the changes in the King of Knights. Seeing Qinyang appear at this moment, he immediately said respectfully, Lord Qin Emperor. Urusha, get ready, this world should end. Qinyang nodded and ordered. Arthur, Arturia is here, you go pick her up, she has lost most of her strength now. After a pause, he looked at Meitu Sakura. Sakura, come with me. Meitu Sakura looked up at Qinyang. It was the first time she saw Qinyang's specific appearance, and she couldn't help but be a little surprised. I didn't expect to be so young and look similar to the big brother next door. It was Urrutia who felt the difference in Qinyang. It's getting more and more unfathomable. Urusha thought to herself, I've been following Lord Qin Emperor all the time, but I don't know what the Lord has done. Why is there such a change? However, she didn't think too much. Anyway, Emperor Qin became stronger, which was just a good thing for her. Just send an invitation to all the masters and let them come to the dojo. The Holy Grail War, this little game, it's time to end. Chapter 0773 _ The Last Holy Grail War. The Phantom Arthur has reached 6 stars, and the main body has advanced to 7 stars. Qin Yang's main purpose in this world has been achieved, and the rest is just to integrate the world of heroes. He instructed Arusha to send an invitation letter and ask all the masters to come to the kendo field, and Qin Yang prepared to solve it once. As for what name to use to send the invitation, whether the other party will come or not, this is not in his scope of consideration. Let Arusha think about it for herself. After doing this, Qin Yang turned around and returned to the dormitory. Not long after, Ains Ergong walked in with Maidou Sakura. Sakura, how are you feeling these 2 days? Qin Yang, Vivi Isho, said, are you still used to the life in the dojo? Maidou Sakura was still a little frightened and did not dare to speak. Qin Yang didn't care, walked up to him, and said gently, next, I will transform your body, awaken your imaginary number attribute, and apply an artificial magic circuit to you. It may hurt a little, you grit your teeth, hold on. What is the imaginary property? In magic, it is defined as, even though it is possible, but not in the material world, it is an imaginary number. It can probably be regarded as an overhead element, virtual. Do you understand the meaning of your own imaginary number? Qin Yang asked. Maidou Sakura quickly shook her head. Do you know parallel worlds? Qin Yang said with a chuckle. Hearing this, Maidou Sakura hesitated for a while, then glanced at Ains Ergong before nodding carefully. There are many, countless parallel worlds. You may be able to jump the timeline, under certain conditions, from one parallel world to another parallel world. The world line, here, you can understand it as imaginary numbers. Qin Yang pondered, and reluctantly told the other party with his own understanding, imaginary numbers, it does not exist in the material world. Timeline, this is just a concept, you can't accurately describe its form. Of course, if you want to, a thorough understanding of imaginary numbers goes a long way. Quote. Of course, this does not mean that after Maidou Sakura has mastered imaginary number magic, he can achieve parallel world interference, although it is possible. But Qin Yang doesn't know what will happen to the imaginary number magic, so he can only roughly predict it. Maidou Sakura seems to understand, although she doesn't understand very well, she always feels very powerful. It doesn't matter. Qin Yang smiled and said, to awaken you to the imaginary number attribute, I just want to transform you into a Holy Grail container, in a short time. Don't be afraid, you can save a person by becoming a container. Saying so, Qin Yang stretched out his hand and pressed it on Maidou Sakura's head. In the next moment, an illusory power poured into the opponent's body. Illusions come to life. With the power of the Phantom God, the artificial magic circuit is embodied, which perfectly matches the body of Maidou Sakura. In itself, the magic circuit is innately grown, but Qin Yang interfered with this result with the power of the Phantom God. Ah! Maidou Sakura let out a low groan. She had already reached the level of numbness when she accepted the ceremony of engraving insects at Maidou Zuian, but the pain at the moment was beyond that. Fortunately, this process did not last long, but within 10 seconds, Qin Yang had already stopped. Okay, your attributes have been awakened, and the magic circuit has been transformed by me. From now on, you have the function of the pseudo-Holy Grail, and can absorb the souls of your followers. Qin Yang let out a breath and waved his hand. Ains, take her to rest. Yes, Lord Qin Emperor. When the two of them left, Qin Yang walked to the futon and sat down, closed his eyes, and cultivated his energy. About half an hour later, King Arthur came in, and 2 women came in with him. Alice Phil and Arturia. Lord Qin Emperor. Arthur said hello first, then looked at Irisfeel. Miss Einsburn, come with me first. Hearing this, Irisfeel looked at Arturia worriedly and whispered, Saber, be careful. After speaking, she had to leave with Arthur. In the room, only Artoria and Qinyang were left. After a moment of silence, Artoria walked to the futon and sat down on her knees. Master. Have you seen it through? Qinyang opened his eyes and looked directly at each other. Yes, I have let go of my obsession. Artoria still had that heroic demeanor. I don't know if it has become relaxed or relieved. The doubter is. Escape. Qinyang said calmly. I thought you would say that. I'm glad you didn't think so. Abandoning one's own mission and handing it over to a more suitable person will definitely be called escape in anime. You are now freed from the shackles of heroic spirits and become a human again. Although you have lost some of your power, there is also a greater possibility. Qinyang said calmly. Altalia, let me ask you now, are you still pursuing power? Why are you pursuing it? Hearing this, Artoria was confused for a while. In the past, she was there to save her country, and later, for the Holy Grail, for the wish. Now, with all her mission gone, she seems to have lost her purpose. You are confused, because you are confused, so come to me the first time you wake up, expecting me to give you an answer. Qinyang chuckled and said, I can't give you the answer. All the problem is what you want, you don't have to worry. I have invited the rest of the masters to come, and soon, you will understand for yourself. Master invited the rest of the masters to come. Arturia was stunned, looking at the young over-the-top master in front of her. For a while, she fell into doubt. You don't know yet, the Holy Grail has been polluted. It still has the function of fulfilling wishes, but this way, because of the evil of this world, will fulfill the wish in the worst way. For example, you want to be the world the strongest, it will not make you stronger, but will obliterate all beings stronger than you. Quote. Qinyang explained, isn't it funny that you have to fight for something like this? Arturia was stunned for a moment. She didn't doubt Qinyang, and with Qinyang's identity and strength, she couldn't lie to her in such a place. In the end, what they were fighting for turned out to be like this, which was ridiculous. I'll deal with it. Qinyang shook his head and said, let's call it the last Holy Grail War, in the true sense, the last battle. On this day, the 6 masters who are still alive have all received invitations. These 6 people are Emiya Kuritsugu, Tasaka Tokiomi, Kotomine Kirei, Meitu Karia, Weber Velvet, and Kenneth Elmeloy. As for Castor, S. Master, the murderous Yuryunosuke has been dealt with by the Death Knight of Ains Ergen. All 6 received the invitation letter, and they suddenly appeared near them, as if they had traveled through time and space, and sent the invitation letter to them. No one dares to ignore it. This time you can send the invitation letter, and the next time you can send the murder weapon. The content of the invitation letter is very simple, inviting everyone to attend the Dream Banquet. The prize of the banquet is the Holy Grail. That night, when the sun set, the first master and his followers arrived at their destination. Is it here? Gilgamesh said grimly. The door of the dojo opened, and Ains Ergong's figure slowly appeared. Welcome to a dream party. Chapter 0774-Dream Banquet. Welcome to a dream party. Ains Ergong stood at the gate of the dojo, looked at Tokiomi Tasaka, and said, please wait for a while, and enter together after everyone has gathered. Did you really invite all the masters? Tasaka Tokiomi's heart sank. In fact, he didn't want to come here at all, but Gilgamesh wouldn't back down, so he had to come with him. However, what he didn't know was that his servant was no longer Gilgamesh, but an illusion of Qinyang. I don't know what the dream banquet is. He said silently. Who are you? Don't be in such a hurry, you see someone is here again. Ains Ergong let out a low laugh and looked up into the distance. I saw that under the night, a Shinwei wheel, dragging thunder and lightning, ran quickly. The King of Conqueror was sitting on the chariot, with Weber shivering beside him, and within a moment, the two had arrived at the dojo. Oh, Glittering, you came faster than me. It surprises me that you didn't die. Gilgamesh spoke coldly. Previously, he seriously injured Iskander and was escaped by the other party. Of course, he deliberately kept his hand. After all, this guy also has divinity and can be absorbed. Just as he was talking, another person stepped forward. The man exuded a shadowy aura, wore a hood, and had a distorted facial expression, as if something was squirming under his skin. Mato Karya. Tokiomi Tosaka swept his gaze. What happened to the Meiju family? To this, Meiju Karya did not answer. The reason why he came is because the invitation letter clearly told him that Meiju Sakura was in their hands. In itself, Meiju Karya will participate in the Holy Grail War to save Meiju Sakura, but I didn't expect the situation to develop beyond expectations. He ignored Tokiomi Tosaka, his eyes locked on Ains Ergong, and he said coldly, "Where is Sakura?" This kind of attitude is not acceptable, you must respect the strong. Ains Ergong let out a deep smile, with a pair of skeleton eyes flashing red. The one standing in front of you is the great king of the undead. If you don't want a part of your body to be lost, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Humph. Meiju Karya was furious, but he couldn't do anything without confirming Meiju Sakura's whereabouts. A group of people stood in front of the gate of the dojo and waited for a quarter of an hour before the fourth master arrived late. That was Kenneth L. Meloy, the mentor of the clock tower. This person walked over. He stared at Weber and said, "As a student, you are really disappointing, Weber Velvet, it's too late to admit your mistake now." Just as he finished speaking, another voice sounded. "I think your personal grievances should be put aside first. At this time, don't we have the same enemy?" The person who spoke, holding a book of clergymen, his face expressionless, was Kotomine Kire. The enemy. Ains Ergong opened and closed his mouth and said with a low smile, "You are also very bold if you dare to come to the enemy's banquet." However, he was too lazy to care, and then said, "Then, everyone is here, come in." Tokiomi Tosaka frowned, "Two less." "No less. One is dead. As for the other, he arrived an hour before you and was caught trying to sneak into the dojo." Of course, it was Emiya Kuritsugu who was arrested. Ains Ergong was not interested in explaining too much, and immediately turned around and walked into the dojo first. Everyone looked at each other, and while being alert to each other, they had to keep up. "I come here for my own reasons, but since I am here, I have to prepare for the worst." Soon, the group, led by Ains Ergong, came to a house. There is a long low table in the house, and the low table is full of drinks and food. When everyone entered the door, someone was already sitting there on their knees. At the front are Artoria and Arthur, sitting opposite each other. Then came Meiju Sakura, who was sitting beside Arturia, but there was an empty space on the opposite side. Then came Irisville and Emiya Kuritsugu. "Sit as you like." After Ains Ergong said something, he sat down opposite Meiju Sakura. "Sakura." Meiju Karya's face was shocked, and he immediately shouted, "Sakura, are you all right?" He walked quickly, but the next moment, a huge coercion suddenly descended on him. Boom. Without reacting at all, Meiju Karya felt that the top of his shoulders was like the top of Mount High, and he knelt down with a plop. What? His pupils shrank, and he suddenly looked forward. In the main seat of the banquet, a man landed on the futon and gave him a faint look. It was this sight that made him instantly lose his ability to resist. "Don't make any noise. Although it's a banquet, I don't like making noise." Everyone was in awe, and they all felt astonished. If this guy hadn't taken the initiative, no one would have realized that the other party was sitting there. "There are people there." Conqueror Wang's heart was heavy. "I observed the whole room the moment I entered the door, but I didn't notice the people there." It was as if he swept across and inspected the entire room, but the other party was like a part of the room and was easily ignored. It was as if that person should have existed here and merged with the heaven and the earth. Intimidated by Qin Yang's sudden words, several masters were shocked, and they only had to take their seats immediately. After everyone sat down, another woman walked in outside the door. It was Arusha. She took the wine and served a table to the people at the table, and then walked to Qin Yang's side, sat down with a smile on her face, and completely acted as a maid. This scene shook the hearts of several people. This time, Urusha showed her face without wearing any clothes she knew. But the breath can't go wrong. Everyone found out at the first time. This is the 3.0 time messenger, and 6th magician. A magician who actually served as the role of pouring tea and wine at the banquet. It's not the first time to meet you, but you should see me for the first time. Qin Yang sat there casually, holding the quilt in one hand and hanging it on his knees. I am the master of the dojo here. Dojo master. King of Conqueror looked at Qin Yang and said slowly, we don't believe you when you say that. You are not an ordinary person, and you can send the invitation letter in that way. No matter how you think about it, it is not an ordinary kendo dojo. Lord, are you the head of the dream? The signature of the invitation letter is a dream banquet. This dream is not an adjective, but a noun. Yes, I am the leader of the dream. Qin Yang, Vivi Isho, said, this emperor has only one name of Qin, you can call me Qin Emperor. Chapter-765 I am your ancestor. You can call me Emperor Qin. Emperor Qin. Several of the masters present frowned. Judging from their appearance, they were Orientals. Judging from their names, they should be Chinese. Is the so-called dream a mysterious institution in China? Tasaka Tokiomi was noncommittal and asked, what is your purpose in inviting us to the banquet? Purpose, this is not urgent. Qin Yang sat there with a relaxed attitude, and he didn't particularly exude momentum, just like an ordinary person. I can't eat your wine without a clear purpose. Iskander the Conqueror grinned and said, I'm afraid of being poisoned to death. Ha ha ha, are we going to use poisonous methods like this? Ames or Gong laughed loudly, a mere inferior creature is really arrogant. This guy. The masters of several people are all unhappy. This mysterious skeleton has such a high posture. If possible, the truth will be taught. Since you are so uneasy, let's get down to business first. Qin Yang said casually, there are many unreasonable things in this Holy Grail war. For example, do you feel surprised that there are 8 masters? In fact, the 8th master is the magician in front of you. She was not chosen by the Holy Grail. What? Kenneth, the clock tower instructor, said inexplicably, what do you want to say? Not the Holy Grail chosen. Meidu Karya sneered and said, it wasn't chosen by the Holy Grail, so what's the matter with the spell on the back of her right hand? Hearing this, Qin Yang couldn't help but chuckle. Incantation. Did you say that? Qin Yang stretched out his hand, and above his left palm, a ***** light flashed, turning into a red mark floating in the air. Seeing this scene, several people's expressions changed slightly. Unbelievable, this person actually created a spell in the void. Could it be? Kodamine Kirei looked dignified, and there was a bold idea in his heart. That's right, the incantations you've seen were made by me. Qin Yang turned his hands and took back the spell in his palm. In the end, what made you feel that only the Holy Grail system can create the illusion of a spell? However, having said that, the incantations he made were very different in principle from those made by the Holy Grail. So in the end, the biggest function of the curse is to make the servant, that is, the heroic spirit, forcibly obey the order. Seeing this, the master and the others were suddenly shocked. This person can create a spell, that is to say, whoever the other party wants to become the master can become the master. No, wait, this kind of spell is not recognized by the Holy Grail system. Apart from restraining heroic spirits, can it be counted as part of the Holy Grail war? Do you create a spell to make this magician the master of this Holy Grail war, the purpose of which is the Holy Grail? Emiya Kuritsugu, who had been silent for a long time, said for the first time, if the purpose is this, with your strength, there is no need to do superfluous things. Superfluous things. Qin Yang put down the wine glass, looked directly at a few people, and said, that's what it is. There is no need to say nonsense. This time I asked you to attend the banquet, just to give you the last chance. Let's do it, don't delay time, you guys six together. The winner, the Holy Grail. Hearing this, everyone's heart sank, but no one did anything. No one could figure out Qin Yang's strength, and who would dare to take action rashly. Tasaka Tokiomi gave Gilgamesh a wink and begged him to take it easy. In fact, without his instructions at all, Gilgamesh, the phantom body, would not be so foolish as to shoot himself against the main body. That is impossible. However, there are always people who can't stand it. At this moment, behind Qin Yang, a black shadow flickered. The black shadow is wearing a cloak, with a white skull mask, and the right hand stretched out from under the cloak, like the arm of a demon, turned into a blood-red form. Delusional heart sound. The assassin was merciless, covering his breath and hiding his posture, until this moment, when he suddenly attacked. Successful. The assassin's heart was calm, his right arm was already close to Qin Yang, and he couldn't reach 20 centimeters, but he had nothing to say about the target. But suddenly, between him and Qin Yang, a wisp of black smoke condensed, forming a dark shadow. Naive. The shadow demon let out a low laugh. The shadow under his feet, like a tentacle, easily bound the assassin's right arm. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed the opponent's white mask, and then stepped forward, pressing the opponent firmly in place. Boom. There was a roar in the banquet hall. What? The assassin's pupils hidden under the mask shrank suddenly. When did it appear? Everything happened so fast that he didn't have time to dodge and was subdued. Although I'm not a combatant, I underestimate my perception. Ever since you hid your breath and lurked in this room, I've been targeting you. As an assassin, I belong to your ancestors. The shadow demon, disdainful, left his hand, and suddenly a shadow man appeared. The next moment, he stabbed mercilessly. Puff. The assassin was like a salted fish on a chopping board, pierced through his body with a single blow, and nailed to the floor. This scene immediately made the masters present all change their expressions. Kodomine Kirei frowned even more. He was the master of the assassin. He thought that even if he couldn't kill the opponent, he could try it out, but he was instantly subdued before he made a move. Thinking of this, he glanced at Tasaka Tokiomi. 593 Everyone, this is the Hongmen banquet. Since everyone will come, they must have their own goals. But in any case, under this situation, it is better to join forces first. Tokiomi Tosaka said solemnly. I don't care about Emperor Qin, it's still a dream, but since I'm aiming for the Holy Grail, I'm our enemy. Ha ha ha, anyway, let's fight, let's fight. Iskander laughed and got up. Then, two lights and shadows flickered again, and two heroic spirits suddenly appeared. One of them was the spearman Delumudo. As for the other, he was pitch black and gave off an ominous aura. Seeing this person, Arturia was stunned, and she couldn't help feeling familiar. Instructor Kenneth ordered, saying, Delumudo, do it. Hearing this, the spearman did not hesitate, sprinted in one step, and the spear shot out like a dragon. But Arturia stood up to intercept it, vowed the sword of victory, and slammed the next blow. Saber, Dairamdo Vivi narrowed his eyes. Don't shoot at the master, you will die. Arturia whispered. The scene was chaotic, and the battle broke out suddenly. In the chaos, Urusha still sat upright and poured wine for Qin Yang. Hee, there are a few hidden little mice, won't they show up together? Qin Yang took a sip and looked up at the roof. Chapter-761-Attack Beyond Time and Space. A few hidden mice, don't you show up together? Qin Yang's posture is leisurely, while drinking a small wine, he looks up at the roof. His gaze seemed to penetrate the barrier of the object and saw the person above the roof. Zelrich sighed inwardly, how did this guy find me? He felt very subtle. He hid his breath and turned it into a part of this space. Normally, it is impossible to expose it. This person is a dream leader, and he is much stronger than the Snow Saint I saw last time, but Zelrich couldn't feel the existence of the other party. No matter how he looked at it, he was an ordinary person with no momentum. Do you want me to invite you down? Qin opened his mouth again, the wine in the glass flickered, and a burst of wine suddenly shot out. The wine, as pure as a clear spring, turned into a sharp arrow immediately after being spilled. Whoosh! Zelrich distorted the space subconsciously while dodging his figure. But the strange thing is that this drop of wine seems to have shattered the space, ignoring his ability and going straight through. What? Zelrich was shocked, and cold sweat broke out suddenly. If I hadn't dodged, the organs in my chest would have been pierced. Just thinking about it, the rubble under his feet shattered, and he fell down. Jewelman, the second magician. Qin looked at the other party, nodded and said, "Yes, I'm still cautious, I just plan to kill you directly." Hearing this, Zelrich couldn't laugh, and seemed extremely solemn. Last time, or in other words, yesterday, he encountered Snow Saint, and after fleeing to a parallel world, Snow Saint could chase after him, and even cast the Ice Sky Snow Lotus picture. That parallel world is still on the verge of destruction, the whole of Japan has been swallowed up, and the power of the seal is still expanding, which has led to Gia's will, which is fighting against the Snow Lotus figure. I have seen your Excellency Emperor Qin. Thinking of this, Zelrich put away the arrogance of the magician and saluted seriously. What are you doing here? Zelrich was silent. Originally, he didn't plan to come back to this place, but after hearing about the invitation letter, out of curiosity, he quietly came over to take a look. I didn't expect this to happen, and now he's sitting a bit on the wax, pondering how to get out. He, since you're here, don't leave. Your abilities are quite interesting. Between the words, Qin grabbed it with one hand. It seems that the space and time are blocked, and Zelrich only feels that the world is darkened, as if to suppress him. What a horrible guy. Hurry up and go. He is too lazy to care about the Holy Grail War. If he wants to run, if he doesn't run again, he is afraid that he will really be caught. Thinking of this, Zelrich immediately distorted the space, activated magic, dodged, and had already sneaked into other parallel worlds. Qin was shot in the air. Urusha raised her eyebrows and said, Lord Qindi, this guy is very difficult to deal with. When I fought against him, there was nothing I could do to take advantage of his ability. Parallel world interference, as one of the 5 major magics, is indeed very difficult to deal with the power of the root. A day ago, maybe I had to do something too, but now. Qin chuckled lightly and shot again. Meanwhile, another parallel world. Zelrich took a breath and was covered in cold sweat. It's terrible, what is this existence? It's more terrifying than Gia and Alaya. If it wasn't for my quick reaction, I would have been caught just now. The moment Qin made his move, the moment he felt the danger, he immediately dived into the parallel world to avoid it. That kind of attack is not at all the concept of what can be used for defense. If you grab it with one hand, the whole world will become dark, as if no matter where you flee, you will not be able to escape the opponent's palm. It's not that I haven't seen Yuo, the strongest man on the planet, and it's not so scary. It seems that I'd better go back to the clock tower and talk to Merlin. Not only has he seen Yuo, but he has also won once. Of course, this win is also a fluke, but in any case, Qin strength is not comparable to Yuo. In his opinion, Gia and Alaya are not so scary. Thinking of this, he acted decisively, preparing to leave Japan and return to England. However, just as he took a step, above the sky, a hand of an illusory god suddenly descended. Impossible. I have already escaped to a parallel world. How did he deliver the attack? Zelrich was shocked and didn't think much about it at all. With a thought, he traveled through time and space again. However, this time, just as he was about to disappear, his body couldn't move, as if there was some kind of force that imprisoned him. What's going on here? Zelrich's face was horrified, and the hand of the phantom god had caught him, and then the world changed. When he regained consciousness again, Zelrich had already seen Qin. This is the Kendo field, the banquet hall, and the surroundings are in chaos. How is it possible? Zelrich's eyes widened, his expression full of sluggishness. Who are you? What kind of power is this? He lost his voice. Rewind time. No, the time in this world can't affect me in another parallel world. Incomprehensible, incomprehensible. It was beyond his knowledge and knowledge. He, don't you understand? Of course, your level is not enough, of course you can't understand. Qinyang was still drinking a little wine, looking at each other playfully. You stand by the pond and reach out to catch a fish. If the fish wants to run, where can it go? Running around, it's all in the pond. In. Hearing this, Zelrich felt chills all over his body and chills down his spine. I attacked you from outside the long river of time and space. The one who attacked was you a few seconds ago. Qinyang chuckled and said, it's not that my power was sent to the parallel world, but that I caught you who haven't escaped yet. So, can you understand? Of course, this involves interference power, not just the power of the illusory god real self. Zelrich still couldn't understand the principle, but he already knew the effect. It means that as long as you stand in front of the opponent, it is useless to escape to the parallel world, and you will still be captured by the opponent. Is this guy human? You, who are you? Powers like yours are no longer at the level of magic and magic. Taking a deep breath, Zelrich gave up the plan to escape, but faced it seriously. Don't be so nervous, I didn't want to kill you. Qinyang shook his head, stood up slowly, then raised his hand and pointed, let me see what the root of your communication is like. Under this finger, Zelrich's soul trembled, as if everything in himself was seen through by the other party, and everything could not be hidden. At the same time, Qinyang saw the root. Chapter-761-Final Battle. Through Zelrich's second magic, Qinyang saw the root. It is not a substantive thing and cannot describe its shape, its nature. It can only feel its existence, and in this feeling, it can be clearly seen that it is the vortex of the root. It is the cause of everything, the source of everything, and the power that transcends laws and rules. The origin of the world is the root evolves into the world, and the world evolves into two major wills, the planetary will Gaia, and the group will Alaya. Just seeing the roots from the depths of memory is not as valuable as actually seeing it with your own eyes. Qinyang withdrew his power, stared at Zelrich, shook his head and said, also, everyone sees the root cause is different. So the power gained from it is also different. Zelrich regained his freedom and his consciousness returned. He was sweating all over and couldn't say a word. The purpose of this person is the root. The purpose of interfering in the Holy Grail war is also this. Use the power of the Holy Grail to open a hole leading to the root. By now, if he can't guess it again, it is a problem of IQ. Thinking about it carefully, this is of course, the people in front of you are so terrifying, it is a matter of course that you will be interested in the root cause. However, throughout the ages, there have been many great magicians who have reached the root, but many of them gained all knowledge at that moment and reached the realm of omniscience, but at the same time, they were also ignorant and could not return from the root. Since this person wants to 893 go to the vortex of the root cause, it is best not to come back. Zelrich thought to himself, and immediately said, Your Excellency Qin Emperor, you are interested in the root cause and need the Holy Grail. I will not interfere. On the contrary, I can help you. When the Holy Grail opens the hole leading to the root cause, it will be strengthened. I can make it more stable. Hearing this, Qinyang raised his eyebrows and looked at each other playfully. How could he not see this kind of careful thinking, but he was too lazy to care. While Qinyang was talking with Jewel Wengselrich, the melee in the banquet hall broke out. From indoor to outdoor, the scene was a mess. Boom. Delumudo was forced to retreat and pushed all the way to the wide open air. He stared at Arturia and said, Why stop me? If you shoot at the master, you will die. Arturia said bluntly. She didn't doubt Qinyang's strength at all, and an opponent of the heroic spirit level would probably be slapped to death with a single slap. Master. Di Lumu was stunned. Also, the last time between us, there was no winner yet. Arturia said softly, and at the same time she finished speaking, she charged up with her sword. After several fights, Di Lumuduo finally sensed something was wrong. Wait, you. He blocked the opponent's slash with one shot, and said slightly surprised, you are not a heroic spirit, you have lost the characteristics of a heroic spirit. Alaya cancelled the contract with me. I signed the contract with the other party before I was alive. I am a living person, so after the contract was cancelled, I became a human being. Arturia took a deep breath, adjusted her spirit, and brought herself into a state of calm. I'm not a heroic spirit anymore, but I'm still a swordsman. Saying that, she waved the blade again. What a joke. Without the characteristics of a heroic spirit, your noble phantasm can't be released. What are you fighting me for? Noble phantasm is the weapon of a heroic spirit, the proof of a hero, the crystallization of fantasy, born from legend. I've never heard of that heroic spirit who could liberate noble phantasm during his lifetime. In other words, the concept of noble phantasm is not the weapons and equipment he held during his lifetime, but the crystallization of legends after death. Indeed, I can't release the noble phantasm right now, but a person's strength cannot be judged from the noble phantasm. Arturia showed a smile, recalling Qin Yang's recent teaching. For swordsmen, the sword they hold is the most powerful noble phantasm. Lancer, take the trick. At this moment, her spirit and will bless the holy sword, facing Di Lumuduo, and slashed with one sword. In an instant, golden light flickered, and an invisible slash swept away. What? Dirumduo blocked his spears forward, but was suppressed by slashing, and the whole person was actually repelled. What kind of power is this? Sword pressing. Swing the sword to stir the wind and waves. Is the sword pressure formed? No, the speed of swinging the sword just now is not enough to form such a strong sword pressure. Not to mention him, even Arturia stayed for a while. Is that how it feels? She seemed to understand something. Her eyes flashed, she clenched the holy sword, and launched an attack again. Lancer, underestimate me, I will be troubled. Meanwhile, on the other side, above the roof. What are you doing? The King of Conqueror's face was ashen as he looked at the two people standing side by side in front of him. Gilgamesh, Arthur Pandoragon. We agreed to join forces together. He looked at Gilgamesh solemnly. HMPH, how could this king join forces with you? Gilgamesh dismissed, you are not qualified to stand side by side with this king. That's it, he's qualified, isn't he? Iskander showed anger and glanced at Arthur. These two are obviously going to work together to deal with him. This made the King of Conqueror very angry. It was different from what he had promised, and he felt betrayed. He. Arthur couldn't help laughing. You misunderstood. It's not that Gilgamesh doesn't obey the master's orders and joins you to deal with me, etc. He was originally ours. What? Hearing this, the King of Conqueror widened his eyes, his face full of incredulity. He's not an idiot with well-developed limbs and a simple mind. He immediately understood when the other party said this. Is this true, Gilgamesh? Conqueror looked at each other and said, when did it start? When of course it started initially. Gilgamesh grinned, and golden lights appeared behind him. I forgot to introduce myself. I am one of the members of the Dream, the King of Heroes, Gilgamesh. Hearing this, Conquer Wang's heart was shaken. Is that acting? He was referring to the battle between the Time Messenger Arusha and Gilgamesh at the Tasaka mansion in the beginning. Since the two of them are both dreams, there is no reason to fight, then, it can only be acting. Yes, it's all acting. Gilgamesh chuckled softly and casually said, enough of the nonsense, you are almost there, it is time to return to the throne of the heroic spirit. Saying that, behind him, a golden light flickered, and a sharp blade was projected, like an endless fish, pouring towards the conqueror. In the hall, the only remaining heroic spirit. A dark, armored knight who fell into madness. Lancelot. Maidoo Carria hid in the distance and shouted loudly, "I ordered you with a curse to save Sakura." Roar. The berserker roared furiously and rushed towards Maidoo Sakura in the direction of the banquet table. But at this moment, a figure flashed and stopped in front of the other party. Seeing this, Lancelot did not hesitate at all, and punched him directly. Boom. Ainzurgung raised his hand and squeezed the opponent's fist. The red eyes on the skull flickered, and a low voice came out. "I am sorry, even if it's a magician, with a level as high as mine, his physical strength is equivalent to that of a high-level warrior." Between the words, a heavy, evil dark aura emanated from his body. A huge amount of magic power filled the entire house. Maidoo Carria felt like falling into an ice cellar and had difficulty breathing. "For the first time, I am one of the dreams, the king of undead. Forget it, you are a berserker, so you can't communicate." Saying that, Ainzurgung stretched out his left hand and pointed at it. Hot hell. Chapter 0778-Final Battle 2. Hot hell. Ainzurgung blocked the opponent's group with one hand, and at the same time, pointed out with the other hand. In an instant, a wisp of orange-red flames swelled in an instant, turning into a monstrous flame, engulfing Lancelot. The raging fire spread rapidly, and the entire banquet hall was engulfed in flames. Seeing this, Marusha waved her hand and cast a deep cold magic power. Ice barrier. Ka ka ka. The extremely cold ice blocked the area where they were, and blocked all the flames. Lancelot. Outside the barrier, Maidoo Carria's complexion changed drastically, the fire spread, and he had to withdraw from the room. Roar. Lancelot roared and was burned by the hot, hellfire. Berserker has always been a tragic hero, and you are no exception. As one of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, he took up the blade of rebellion and killed the Knights of the Round Table. Ainzurgung looked at the other party from a distance, and said indifferently, "I will send you back to the seat of heroes to help you free yourself, so why bother?" Obviously, berserkers are irrational, and at the cost of rationality, they gain madness and enhance their abilities. However, having said that, Ainzurgung's words obviously touched Lancelot. He roared, and the magic all over his body suddenly exploded. Boom! Like a burst of dark magic radiating outward, it suddenly dispelled the flames on his body. Under his helmet, he exhaled a dark breath, as if breathing. "The level of magic power is not bad, it can dispel my magic," Ainzurgung commented calmly. He was not in a hurry at all. Lancelot was summoned with the berserker rank, and his strength was limited. Realizing that the enemy was not easy to deal with, Lancelot suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed the door on one side. With a bang, the wooden door was grabbed abruptly, and then in his hands, it was dyed a dark red color. Ordinary wooden doors have been transformed into noble phantasms. For heroic spirits, ordinary hot bullet weapons cannot damage them, and the mystery is not enough. But Lancelot has such an ability. No matter what, as long as it is in his hands, it can be transformed into a treasure. While increasing the mystery, it also strengthens the material and power. "Grab a wooden door, and then what?" Ainzurgung said indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, Lancelot suddenly threw the object in his hand with great force. It seemed that the angle had been calculated, and the wooden door just blocked Ainzurgung's sight while projecting it out. "He, do you want to run?" Ainzurgung let out a low laugh, and the magic power surged from his body, forming a magic shield. Predict. WM1. The wooden door bombarded the shield and shattered in an instant. Although it has been transformed into a noble phantasm, in the final analysis, it is still a fragile wooden product, not worth mentioning. However, the wooden door was shattered, and Ainzurgung also lost his presence. Obviously a berserker, it's really incompetent to play such a small trick. Ainzurgung stepped forward and walked out of the house. The fire has spread, the entire dojo is burning, thick black smoke. No matter where you are in Fuyuki City, you can see a trace on the ground. Just when he walked outside the dojo and walked out of the fire, suddenly, a huge stone pillar glowing red suddenly fell from the sky. The stone pillar was more than 10 meters high, and it was as thick as 3 or 5 people hugged. Boring. Ains or Gong snorted coldly. Nuclear shock. Boom. A huge magic force, in the form of a shock wave, slammed into the sky stone pillar. In the big explosion, the stone pillar was shattered in an instant, and Lancelot was smashed into the air. On the other side, Artoria slashed, knocking Dairamdo into the air. The two happened to collide. At this time, Lancelot seemed to have found something useful, and turned around and grabbed a long spear of Dairamdo. It was the yellow gun, a bit shorter than the red one. After falling into Lancelot's hands, without hesitation, he stepped on Dairamdo's chest, borrowed strength from it, and then suddenly rushed towards Ains Ergen. My noble phantasm. Darumudo was furious. You bastard. He was kicked flying and fell to the ground. It's really boring. Take out your sword in the lake, and it's barely worth seeing. What's the point of grabbing someone else's gun? Ains Ergong's tone was cold. As an undead, he didn't have to do it deliberately. His tone changed like this. Lancelot ignored it, stabbed straight, and struck with all his strength. Boom. With a dull sound, Ains Ergong pinched the barrel of the gun, and the tip of the gun was no longer 3 centimeters away from his chest. Strengthen your muscles. Power up. Strengthen your wrist. In an instant, the 3 magics instantly blessed him, and Ains Ergong stopped the spear before it pierced through him. I said, as a level 100 great magician, in terms of strength, I am also equivalent to a high-level warrior. Ains Ergong's tone was cold. I wanted to see your sword in the lake. Since you are not interested in taking it out, then see you again. 10th, Order Purgatory Demolition. Boom. I saw the 2 people's feet. The earth turned into darkness, as if communicating with Purgatory. Suddenly, a shock from Purgatory turned into a dark beam of light, soaring into the sky. The beam of light slowed down, almost rushing to the height of 1,000 meters. Lancelot, devoured by the darkness, roared. This is the top-level magic of the 10th Order. Like a black hole, a super angel can be easily killed with a single blow. Lancelot turned into a little radiance and dissipated, and his soul flowed towards Irisville in the house. Fix 1. Ains Ergong raised his hand and caught the falling noble phantasm. In the distance, Di Lumu was shocked, and the group of people in Dream was too terrifying. Any one of them has the strength to crush the heroic spirit. At the same time, inside the ice barrier. Huh. Suddenly, Qin Yang raised his head and grabbed it suddenly, as if he had ingested something. Sakura. Saying that, he flicked his fingers, and this kind of thing immediately disappeared into Meitu Sakura's body. This is... Zelrich's eyes widened. The soul of a heroic spirit, you transformed this little girl into a Holy Grail container. You are quite knowledgeable. Qin Yang chuckled lightly, got up and walked towards Irisville. Little girl from the Einsborn family, for the sake of taking good care of my apprentice, I saved your life, you don't need to thank me. He walked slowly, with a distance of more than 10 meters, he could walk for half a minute. Several people were very nervous, especially Emiya Kuritsugu, who saw his wife being targeted, and was already in a state of eruption at any time. Seeing that Qin Yang was about to walk in front of Irisville, Emiya Kuritsugu couldn't bear it any longer. He suddenly got up, took out a gun from his pocket, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Original bomb. Boom. Gunshots resounded. Chapter-761-780 Emiya Kuritsugu's death. Boom. Gunshots resounded. In the face of the oppressive force brought by Emperor Qin, Emiya Kuritsugu finally couldn't bear it and chose to draw his gun and shoot. His movements were very fast, and he had already loaded the bullets. At this moment, he suddenly shot, and it seemed that he had planned it, not a temporary decision. Original bomb. A peculiar brass-colored bullet was fired from the barrel of the gun, heading towards Qinyang, 5 or 6 meters away, at several times the speed of sound. With such a close distance and a large caliber rate of fire, even heroic spirits could not escape. However, a strange scene happened. At the moment when the original bullet that killed magicians was shot, the flow of time in the ice barrier seemed to suddenly slow down by dozens, hundreds of times. Emiya Kuritsugu himself could clearly see the slow trajectory of the bullet after it was fired. What? Emiya Kuritsugu's pupils shrank, and his heart was horrified. It's not him, it's that woman. He rolled his eyes and looked towards the main seat of the banquet. He saw a delicate face, and at this moment, the face was covered with frost. I don't know what to do with the Lord Qin Emperor. Urusha was very angry, and the killing intent was undisguised, and she took action. Even if Emiya Kuritsugu suddenly attacked her and hurt her, she would not be so angry, but attacking Emperor Qin at such a close distance, this kind of offense is no longer a situation that can be comforted by an apology. Ice gun. In an instant, the indoor temperature plummeted to below zero, like falling into the sky and snow. In the air, a dozen ice spears condensed in an instant, and they shot out suddenly. Puff puff. Under the realm of time, Emiya Kuritsugu did not respond at all, and even if his brain was conscious, his body was extremely sluggish. In an instant, he was pierced by dozens of long spears, and his whole body was knocked into the air, and he was pinned to the ice barrier. Until then, the time that was delayed and interfered suddenly changed and returned to normal. No. Only then could Irisfeel shout, Kuritsugu. She quickly got up and ran towards Emiya Kuritsugu. Why? Qinyang paused and sighed. Originally, I didn't want to take the initiative to this banquet. You came up to the gun yourself and wanted to die. I am very sorry, Lord Qin Emperor, for killing people without permission. Urusha was angry, frightened, and gritted her teeth. It is already the greatest gift for such an ant-like character to be able to see Lord Qin Emperor dare to commit murder and offend the adults. I still can't stand it no matter what. I also ask Lord Qin Emperor to punish. Close the confinement, Urusha has no regrets, and again, she still wants to kill. Although she knew that that kind of thing might not hurt Qinyang, as long as there was a 1 in 10,000 possibility, she would chop off Emiya Kuritsugu's outstretched claws. It's okay. Qinyang shook his head and didn't say much. He couldn't punish Urusha just because he was protecting the Lord, that would be wrong. With that in mind, he walked away and walked to Emiya Kuritsugu. This person was pierced by more than a dozen ice walls, nailed to the ice barrier, and breathed a sigh of relief. Irisfeel's face was full of anxiety, trying to heal this fatal wound. However, her healing ability is not very strong, and this fatal injury cannot be cured at all. Give it up, the internal organs have been pierced, and there is no way to save it. He can be saved, but there is no reason. Emiya Kuritsugu sneaked up on him, and he still has to save others. Isn't that rude? Kuritsugu. Irisfeel's face was full of tears, but she still did not give up. Emiya Kuritsugu opened his mouth, and when he was dying, he glanced at his wife, Alice Mayfair. No need. He turned to Qinyang. This way one day I have already prepared Chindi. I beg you let her go. It turns out that you are begging for your own death. Qinyang raised his eyebrows. That kind of thing can't hurt me. You should be aware of this kind of thing. In this case, you still do it, you can only beg for death. As for why Emiya Kuritsugu did this, he could somewhat guess. I don't intend to kill people today, I just want to end this uninteresting war that has lasted for more than 200 years. Apart from the heroic spirits, I have no interest in your masters, and neither does Irisfeel. Hearing this, Emiya Kuritsugu seemed to be relieved, and then closed his eyes completely. Kuritsugu. Irisfeel groaned. Hate it. Not much, and Qinyang can guess Emiya Kuritsugu's thoughts, and she can understand a little. This time, he really sacrificed himself to save others. Qinyang was speechless for a while. A magician who does everything to achieve his goals, a dreamer who hopes for world peace, but a realist who is ruthless and ruthless. The path he chooses in the end, is this the end? This is very different from the choice of the original Emiya Kuretsugu. Probably because the power of Emperor Qin is unrivaled, it is impossible to obtain the Holy Grail, and it is impossible to obtain a contaminated Holy Grail, and it is almost non-existent. Qin Yang understood what the other party was doing, but he could only shake his head. I'm tired of it, let's end it early. As he spoke, a white light was projected on his chest, and then it turned into the figure of a middle-aged man. Yes, Lord Qin Emperor. Adamant nodded and disappeared in a flash. The Lord of the World. Urusha's eyes lit up, and he secretly said, I don't know when the Lord of the World will arrive. The members of the dream are all existences that come and go without a trace. Until now, Urusha has not entered the core layer, and many things are unknown. Zelrich on the side was shocked. It's another terrifying existence. The middle-aged man who suddenly came out has a very terrifying magic power. As a magician, he still has the ability to judge himself. If it is said that a magician of the crown level, the magic power in his body is a small lake, then the man just now is a sea. No, even 3.6, that person is the magic itself. So huge, so incredible. That person is also a member of the dream. How many are there? The World Master. It sounds like a special member above the Master. At the same time, outside the kendo field, the Lord of Elements stood in the sky, and the void stood under the night, overlooking the entire Fuyuki city. It takes 60 years for a great Holy Grail system to extract the magic power of the underground spiritual veins. This kind of slow intake is to prevent damage to the spiritual veins themselves. However, I don't care about this. Anyway, this is the last time. To maximize the effect, draining the entire spiritual vein at one time is the right choice. Quote. The Lord of Elements chuckled lightly, stretched out his hand suddenly, pressed and retracted. Pumping the power of heaven, earth and stars. Chapter 0780 to the root. Pumping the power of heaven, earth and stars. With one click of the elemental lord, the earth spirit veins in the entire Fuyuki city are immediately extracted. The Great Holy Grail system itself has been absorbing the magic power of the spiritual veins day and night for the past 60 years, and now there are not many left. But this is not much. It is based on the condition that does not hurt the spiritual vein itself. At this moment, the action of the Lord of Elements directly strips out the last trace of the power of the spiritual vein, and the light on the spiritual vein becomes irreversible. Damage. But, who cares? In order to make the road to the root more spacious, it is not worth mentioning the loss of a heavy spiritual land. I saw that under the night, in Fuyuki City, the trees between the cities were withering, as if autumn had entered. The green leaves are dyed with orange-yellow color, and the fallen leaves are flying down. The moisture in the air gradually disappeared, and the dryness filled the world. This land seems to have lost its spirituality and is dying. Boom. Suddenly, thunder sounded above the sky. It was not a normal phenomenon, but the will of the planet was angry. Gia's bottom line again and again, which makes Gia's anger accumulate more and more. Humph, want to stop now. It's already 29 nights. The Lord of Elements sneered. The palm of his hand condensed the remaining magic power of the entire Fuyuki city. The next moment, he waved his hand and launched 2 attacks. 2 pure magic power, with absolute magic power level, fell to the 2 people in the kendo field below. The spearman Delumudo and the cavalry Iskander were both being held back. They could not have predicted that 2 attacks would suddenly fall from the sky. Puff puff. 2 pure magic arrows pierced through their chests in an instant. Dairamdo's body was stiff, and he looked up with a dull face. For heroic spirits, the people who exist in the sky, in their eyes, are the embodiment of magic power, which is an unimaginably huge magic power. The root. Delumuduo staggered a few steps and fell to the ground. It's a pity, I guessed wrong. I'm not a great magician who has reached the root, but a magician who has stepped into the realm of the gods. The Lord of Elements looked down at the other party calmly, ignoring the thunderclouds in the sky. You can call me the World Lord. Dream. D. Lumuduo smiled bitterly. The opponent's magic power penetrated into the body, destroying his physical skills in an instant, and in a few seconds, he was about to die. As the heroic spirits summoned by the Holy Grail, your mission has been completed and you can return to the throne of heroic spirits. The Lord of Elements said lightly, relax, wait for me to control this world, and the throne of heroes will appear in another form. We will meet again, young spearman. Meanwhile, indoors. The entire kendo field was basically burned down, but only the banquet hall, and a few parts remained intact. With the death of the spearmen and cavalry, the two souls were once again absorbed by Qin. All heroic spirits have perished, their souls have been absorbed by the little Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail war is over. Between the words, Qin flicked his fingers and injected two souls into Medu Sakura's body, then looked at Irisville. You are the little Holy Grail this time, the Holy Grail container. In your body, there are two souls. Quote. Saying that, he extracted from the air and directly pulled out the soul. There are a total of 7 heroic spirits in the Holy Grail War. At present, 6 have died, and the conditions for opening the Holy Grail have been met. These 6 people are Archer, Gilgamesh. Spearman, Diremdo Adina. Cavalry, Iskander. The Sorcerer, Giles de Rees. Assassin, Hassan Saba. Berserker, Lancelot. The souls of the 6 heroic spirits gathered, and Medu Sakura suddenly felt a huge force burst out, which seemed to be affecting her consciousness. But Qin was prepared and directly interfered with this, allowing her to maintain a little bit of herself. Sakura, I'm not interested in the wish of the Holy Grail, what do you wish for? Qin was very calm. The Holy Grail is polluted, and it has gathered a huge amount of evil in this world. Think about it. When I come back, I will purify it and help you fulfill your wishes. It is a share for you, who is the container of the Holy Grail. Reward. As soon as the voice fell, he had disappeared within the enchantment. When he reappeared, he was already standing above the kendo field. At this moment, because the conditions of the Little Holy Grail are fulfilled, the Great Holy Grail system is also activated. The magic power that has been accumulated for 60 years, in the hands of the Lord of Elements, the last spiritual power is gathering into the sky bit by bit. Among the dark clouds, the moon showed its appearance, but at this moment, under these malicious magic powers, the moon in Qin eyes had been dyed black. It seems to be a hole, leading to the outside of the world, the entrance to the vortex of the root. Open it for me. Qin snorted coldly and immediately stretched out his hand. With this throw, the tiny hole was forcibly torn and enlarged tenfold in an instant. It was as if a huge dark full moon was hanging in the air. Boom! The thunder became louder and louder, and Gia's will came directly. This time, it was not just a part of the power, but a body. It was a little girl with no expression on her face, but she was very angry. Qin Emperor, you have repeatedly breached the contract, what exactly do you want to do? Breach of contract. Think carefully about the content of the agreement. Qin said calmly, our agreement is that the well water will not violate the river water. I never said that we will stop there and stop interfering in the Holy Grail War. You want to get to the root. Gaia's face was expressionless. As soon as she finished speaking, another little girl appeared. Alaya, you came to stop me too, what does this have to do with you? Qin raised his eyebrows. I don't know, but I have a hunch that I should stop you. Moreover, one of your subordinates almost destroyed a parallel world. She was referring to Shui Sheng. Under the suppression of her and Gia, the Ice and Snow Lotus map finally reduced the damage to the minimum, but Rao was 110, and the effect could not be completely eliminated. At least the city of Fuyuki in that parallel world was sealed into the picture scroll. Now it's too late to stop me now. Do you want to lose both? Even if you give up this parallel world, we will stop you. In response, Qin couldn't help laughing. I said late, I mean you are no longer my opponents. A day or two earlier, it would still be a little troublesome, but now. Halfway through the conversation, he had already started. One punch, shattering the vacuum. Boom. In an instant, the sky of Fuyuki City was shattered, the space shattered, and cracks spread as if they were peeled off lightly and brittly. This spread even touches Gia and Alaya. This is. Gia's expression changed for the first time. She was the embodiment of the will of a planet. The power of this punch directly interfered with her. Being able to interfere with her means that the opponent's punch has the power to shatter a planet. And Shin, I'm not interested in killing you, but just the two of you are no longer my opponents. Qin Yang's words rang out, and he took a step forward. He had already crossed the shattered sky, past Gia and Alaya, and appeared directly in front of the hole. The road to the root has been opened, and when we meet again, I will be the master of this world. Glancing back at this world, Qin Yang took one step and stepped into the darkness.